evening. I'll bring the Brattleboro Selectboard meeting of Tuesday, September 9th, 2025 to order. This is a regular meeting. We just concluded an executive session where no decisions were made. And are there any adjustments to the agenda?
I'm aware of.
All right, very good. Let's approve the minutes from August 4th and August 5th. Do I have a motion?
Yeah,
Yes.
I move that we approve the August 4th and August 5th meeting minutes.
Great. Isaac has asked to approve the minutes from August 4th and August 5th. Anyone, all select board members in favor of that motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
There we go, 5-0. Now, chair's remarks. We've been off for a month, and it's very exciting for all of us to see you here, and we welcome you back, and I hope everyone made good use of their time away. And we're eager to begin essentially the fall season and the budget season and all those good things. So thank you for being here. There's a listening session on the budget on Thursday, and we've structured that so that people can speak for 5 whole minutes, but only once. So come prepared. John, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I have a few. Tonight, I really have to sing the praises of the town DPW crews who you've all seen hustling around town. I had to catch up on a late start with all the budget season and then trying to keep in tandem with all the state's road projects. It's been pretty impressive. I know that the short-term disruptions, waiting in traffic, the lights, the noise, that can be annoying for everyone, but the long-term results of better infrastructure in our town are going to be very welcome and will benefit all of us. On the state paving project, our crews continue to work overnight on multiple Class 1 roads and also during the days working on the sidewalk replacements, curbing, and water box structures that have to be coordinated with the state's overnight crews. On Canal Street, the top coat is in place now and final pavement markings are being applied there. Putney Road, Park Place, Linden Street, Main Street, Route 142. The current work includes structure height adjustments and signage upgrades, and a final top coat is expected to go on those roads in the next couple of weeks. High Street and Western Ave, those will be the last areas to be completed this season. The crews will be adjusting structures and replacing all of the crosswalk ramps to make them meet ADA standards, and the final top coat on High Street and Western Ave is scheduled for mid-October. Traffic signal improvements. So the DPW leadership administration has been working with VTrans to incorporate into this paving project adjustments and upgrades to the traffic signal timing and equipment at all 5 intersections from Route 142 through the north end of Main Street. These improvements, if they get approved, will address traffic flow challenges created by the new traffic pattern from the Brattleboro-Hinsdale Bridge and are expected to improve both safety and efficiency downtown. DPW crews have also been working away, getting started on the William Street retaining wall project. That is progressing on schedule with a completion anticipated before the end of the calendar year. The westerly spur of William Street and Western Ave will be closed for the duration of this project, and the easterly spur of William Street and Western Ave is now one-way outbound, so going north towards Western Ave. Residents accessing the westerly side of William Street must enter from Union Hill. These traffic adjustments will remain in place during the duration of the retaining wall project for safety and efficiency, and then they'll be reevaluated. We thank residents for their continued patience and cooperation with those adjustments. Melchin Road, there's a big project out at Melchin Road. There was a washout from the July flooding 2 years ago, and this project is being funded through FEMA. And following the governor's approval of a major disaster declaration for that flooding event, Slope stabilization is being installed to restore that road to its original width and prevent future erosion. And then, along with all of this, DPW crews over the past 2 months have replaced over 1,000 feet of sewer line on Elliott Street, Church Street, and at Mountain View. DPW has also put a focus on improving the downtown district to create a more vibrant and clean space for everyone to use. They've initiated improvements to lighting, the co-op walking path redo, painting, improvements to the transportation center, and fire, DPW, and police department staff have incorporated 2 mornings per week to remove litter. And since July 1st, crews have removed 3.57 tons of rubbish at a cost of $714 from the downtown area. So I really want to acknowledge the DPW leadership, which is really demonstrated at all levels in that department, and I congratulate them on a great season of work. And I ask everyone to give them a wave and a thumbs up as you drive by and see them on the roads the rest of the summer. Finally, I want to give a shout out to a number of town employees who have reached milestones of service this calendar year. For reaching 5 years of service, Stephen Dotson, Taylor Struthers, Stuart Wheeldon Jr., and Mesa Kennedy, thank you. For reaching 10 years of service, Benjamin Ather, Kevin Lambert, Patricia Sheehan, and Garrett Calentropio, thank you. For 15 years of service, really appreciate Amy Fletcher. For reaching 35 years of service, Scott Blodgett and Matt Odgin, really, really appreciate you. And for 40 years of service this year, I think everyone really appreciates Rec and Parks Director Carol a lot. So thank you all for your great work and your commitment to Brattleboro, all these staff. It's really great. So.
What a great report. Thank you, John. Are there select board members who would care to comment or give a committee report? Oscar?
Thank you. I'd like to give a brief public update on the bridge project. We're continuing to look for basically finding the right solution that addresses Hinsdale's legitimate concerns and is also fair to Brattleboro and fair to Brattleboro's taxpayers. That work's ongoing, and I continue to feel good about its prospects. Anyone who's interested in knowing more or in being involved, please feel free to contact me directly anytime. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right.
Oh, I have a couple of things.
Do you?
I do.
Go right ahead.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to see such good turnout here in person and appreciate folks who are watching online. I want to appreciate the town staff and fellow select board members for the participation with the retreat that we did on August 4th. This was an opportunity where we spent a few hours together over at the fire station, and want to particularly thank our town manager for having brought this initiative of select board retreats to us, to our town, and also Sue Fillion, our planning director, for having facilitated. Out of that, we developed 5 draft priorities, which are in our consent agenda, I believe, for this evening.
Yes.
We'll be going over those at this evening, or naming what those are.
I will summarize them, yeah.
Great. So just really appreciate that opportunity. I wanted to also just say that one of the things that came out at that meeting was an idea to have the discussion of a request from the Town Finance Committee to come before the Select Board and have a conversation with us about several questions that they have about town finances. And I understand that they've been invited to come to our next meeting. Is that correct? Or
Yes, they've been invited to come to your meeting on the 24th.
excellent. So we'll have a chance to have that discussion. Would encourage folks to tune in.
24th of October?
September.
24th of September.
So this month at our sounds like our next meeting. Well, we have the meeting on the 11th to the listening session. I also wanted just to note that I've been asked to speak to the issue of the removal of encampments from the woods in town that was reported on in the Commons. And, this is a sensitive topic. I want to thank the work of our first responders and our Department of Public Works staff for supporting the health and safety of our town. Our responses should prioritize the safety of all of our residents and minimize any harm that's done. It can be, the encampments can be a public health risk, but there also is a response to a situation that our town didn't create of homelessness, but as a result of state and federal policy, we are experiencing. And I want to just highlight that at our retreat, we talked about creation of more housing, expansion of shelter capacity for people who are currently living outdoors, and there's also discussion about places for people to camp. Like, how can we make sure that people do have a place to stay? If it's not a roof over their head, what are people to do? And some of the requests that I've received from members of the public, which are not something that I can grant and that it's not on the agenda for tonight, but I just want to share them since multiple people did bring these to me. One is a request for bathroom facilities for support with sanitation at campsites. In the cases of removal, focusing on individuals who are causing harm rather than an entire encampment. Transparency around how encampments are targeted for clearing, who decides the timeline for removal and the process for appealing that decision. Care for people's belongings, including tents, and communication with community leaders who work with unhoused individuals about planned removals with specific information about plans for those removals, including dates of intended actions. I've discussed this with the town manager and am looking forward to learning more about the process. I would encourage us to as much as possible, that when we read an article with some concerning headline and some concerning quotes inside, that we take. I know this issue can be polarizing, and just would urge us to take the time to really talk one another, to learn more, and I'm confident that with more discussion, we can come up with solutions to minimize harm for people who are unhoused and for people who are also neighbors of encampments and our first responders. But I do think that more discussion with our community will be important before more removals of people from the wooded areas in our town. Thank you.
Okay, Isaac, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment from the select board?
I'll give a brief shout out. Actually, on September 20th, there's going to be a fundraiser for the Brattleboro School Endowment. And if you haven't heard of it, it's an organization that was formed to fund winter sports opportunities for children, skiing, bowling, skating. And it's a mum sale. It happens to be happening at our farm, but all the proceeds are going to, so Lilac Ridge Farm, September 20th, Brattleboro School Endowment fundraiser. Buy a mum, you can pre-order. Look out for the postings that you might see. So let's support the youth in our community.
Thank you, Amanda. Peter?
Yeah. So in the theme of plugging things, we have a fundraiser going on tomorrow for Black Mountain Assisted Family Living, which is an organization that I am involved in. We're doing a barbecue dinner at the Royal Diner starting at 5, and I'll be one of your cooks. I don't know if that sells it or kills it for everybody, but myself and Chad Farnham will be out there cooking ribs, pulled pork, and serving up some dinner out on the deck. So we would hope that you come by. I know that there's a couple of things going on, but we planned this so you could grab dinner and then go see the show downtown.
Thank you. All right. Next is the public participation. So anyone who would like to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. I see Millicent's hand sprung right up. So Millicent?
Thank you. I'd like to
Come up to the mic.
Oh, sorry.
Pardon me?
Come up to the mic.
Oh, yeah. Come to the microphone and please state your name.
Yeah, Millicent Cooley. I'd like to make an announcement. The petition to place open town meeting as an option on the ballot so that voters could vote for or against OTM in the event that voters decide to end RTM has been certified with 473 signatures. We decided to stop calling in the remaining. The work to collect these started 2 weeks ago on August 25th, and it proceeded quickly. The goal is appeal to a broad range of people. The vast majority we talked to were appreciative, and very few were opposed. Thank you to everyone who helped.
Thank you, Millicent. Dick?
List. I want to thank you. I hope you had a nice vacation. Thank you for the postcards. They were really colorful and thoughtful. And also, thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Amanda, for showing up for the bridge showing. Poor showing, and I thought, for the town, for such an iconic bridge, but you people showed up, and I appreciated that.
Good ice
Ask you
cream.
to put on either next week's, the next meeting's agenda or the meeting after, an update on the Brat team and what it is, how it is going downtown. And I see the DBA representative here, and maybe we can get businesses and people that are downtown to come to that meeting and talk about the pluses and if there are any minuses about it. John touched upon this, but I'd also like included in that is the time, the amount of money, and how many people it is taking to keep the downtown area clean of trash and needles that we are picking up on a weekly basis. That is certainly having an impact on our tax basis. I'd also like to know how many OD deaths we've had this year, not from the beginning of the new fiscal year, but the whole year. Narcan use, how much money we have spent on Narcan, how many times we've used it this year, and EMS, how much time is being spent on Narcan use, drug use, and whatever else issues cover that area. I think it's important to give the town a report on what's going on in the community. I don't believe that people are truly aware. Isaac talked about a little bit of that in what you talked about at your retreat. I'm also going to ask under consent agenda that you pull that select board priorities off. I think it's important for the town to hear what your priorities are and not hide it in consent agenda. I've never been a fan of consent agenda. You have 12 items on here this evening, and I know you have protocol to pull things off, but I don't think consent agenda is a good way to do business. To me, it's not overly transparent. Not enough people are aware of how it works and its function. But I ask you to do that because I truly believe that the town, especially going into the budget cycle, how important it is for the town to really know what's going on with everything that's happening, considering the homeless and the drug problems that we're having. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Anyone else? Kate?
Hello, I'm Kate Traskis, representing Downtown Brattleboro Alliance. I just want to say a big thank you again to our public works staff and particularly Peter Lynch for leadership with the Lunch in Lot program we did during August down in the Preston lot on Flat Street, as well as Aaron Skaggs from the DBA. It was just a really fun way to take a look at a space and reimagine it and think about what's possible. And so thank you to all of you that came out for lunch. It was a lot of fun, and we'll see what the future brings. Thanks.
Thank you, Kate. That was fun. Ivan?
Ivan Hennessy. I see out and about, at the library on the bulletin board there, and on various town websites, requests that people participate in various committees. And I think that the town could do a lot to funnel people into those committees and also do a lot to make the downtown itself more attractive by taking advantage of a lot of civic goodwill and energy with a lower barrier to entry. I have participated in a whole bunch of elections run by our fantastic town clerk, and seeing how people can come together and be organized, and especially how willing people are to act if they don't have to take on the executive part of that, if they don't have to make the decisions about when things happen, how things happen. People have a lot of stuff going on in their lives. They want to help, but if there's someone providing that structure for them, it's easier to get people to help. I think that the town should have a full-time paid position that would organize and coordinate just the general public to do all sorts of stuff that would improve the town and would also make people realize how easy it is to participate in town government in small ways that make it easier for them to step up and participate in more intense ways. I do have reservations about suggesting that we produce some sort of volunteer workforce. I think that people generally should be paid for work, but I also know that the town is looking for every possible way to cut the budgets of everything except for the police department. So I think maybe we could leverage one paid position to get an immense amount of labor out of it.
Thank you. Randy?
Randy Blodgett, District 7. Just curious if there's any update on solid waste.
John, you want to answer that?
Sure, yeah. So we are still negotiating with one contractor that put in a proposal for solid waste services in town, and we hope to find some additional savings before we finalize a contract there.
Okay. Yes.
Ken Fay, District 8. I just wanted to say that on the recommendation, I guess that's called, from Robert Osher, I stopped by 69A on Elliott Street and to see what they were doing, and it was a great experience. I enjoyed it. I saw the help that they're doing. I've been there a couple times. I've also donated things to there, and that way I've actually seen my donations put to good use, bypassing what apparently a lot of the people in town think is the human service industrial complex. So I just wanted to thank 69A for what they're doing.
Is there anyone else with a comment that is not on tonight's agenda? Anyone on the screen? All right, very good. The consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull an item from?
Do you want to hear a summary first? Or?
What a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
There are 12 items on the consent agenda tonight, and as always, we strive to make them the non-controversial things. So if you approve this agenda, you'll be approving 2 entertainment licenses, one for Halo Hollow at 75 Elliott Street, which is a boba tea house with light Asian fare that plans to have live music and karaoke. One also for Tavernier Chocolates at 28 Main Street, who plans to have small live ensembles and DJs for tasting events. You'll be receiving the Downtown Improvement District vote results for continuation of that program. You'll be accepting and appropriating $50,000 in grant funding from the 2025 Municipal Roads Grant in Aid program. You'll be ratifying a $21,000 lease with the Brattleboro Co-op for 3,000 square feet of storage at the Transportation Center. You'll be adopting the 2025 to 2027 Select Board priorities that you landed on at your August 4th retreat, which was an open public meeting and is also recorded and online. And those priorities were increase revenues, advocate for state revenue sharing, work towards child safety zones, expand housing stock, and maintain financial responsibility and health. You'll be authorizing application for a community development block grant for $1.8 million to replace the town-owned Detman Drive Bridge with an increased span to convey a 100-year flood. You'll be supporting the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance's bid for a Downtown Vibrancy Fund Award of $25,000 for marketing, graphic design, and increased staff capacity. You'll be authorizing the purchase of a 2025 Chevrolet Tahoe for $55,987 as approved in the FY25 capital plan. You'll be adopting municipal policies necessary for receiving Vermont Community Development Program block grant funding. You'll be authorizing the town's participation in the new national opioid settlement with Purdue. And you'll be authorizing the library to enter into a 5-year lease of a color printer for staff use at an annual fee of $1,246.76.
Great. Now I'll ask, is there a select board member who would like to pull an item from the consent agenda?
Yes. I'd like to pull the priorities discussion.
All right. Very well. So we'll move that to the end of the evening item. It would be now item F. And then all select board members would someone like to make a motion, actually, about the consent agenda?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Actually, you want to, with the exception.
As amended.
As amended.
Thank you.
Very good. All select board members who would like to accept the consent agenda as amended by Oscar, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Very good. That's 5-0. And now here we are with regular business. So we have a announcement of committee vacancies. Presentation by town staff. Is that you?
Oh, I can do that. If you like. Okay. So there's no real motion required for this, but as was mentioned in public participation, there's a number of committee vacancies that have become open, and also we understand a bunch of people who are interested in joining those efforts. So we've had a few applications. So the board is asked to announce these vacancies at your meeting tonight, and they are for the ADA Advisory Committee. There are 2 vacancies. For the Arts Committee, there is 1 vacancy on the Arts Committee. There are 2 vacancies on the Conservation Commission, 1 vacancy of a Design Review Committee alternate, and 2 vacancies of Development Review Board alternates. There is 1 vacancy on the Energy Committee, 2 vacancies of fence viewers, and 1 vacancy on the Nelson E. Withington Fund Advisory Committee. So if anyone has any interest in any of those opportunities of serving the town, please contact the town manager's office, look for information on the website, get in an application, and let the board appoint you to one of those positions.
Thank you, John. All right. There's no motion required, so let's move on to the next item, which is Groundworks Collaborative Update. Let me welcome the Groundworks staff and board representatives. I believe we have Libby Bennett and Peter Elwell. Welcome. Okay, so this is information and a discussion. There's no motion required, but let me again welcome you too. And I understand you have a presentation, and we'd love to see it.
Wonderful. I think Seth has our slides. Thank you, Seth. Seth and I agreed that I will give him a flag when it's time to change the slide, so. Great. Well, good evening, and thank you for having me. I'm Libby Bennett. I'm the Executive Director at Groundworks Collaborative, and I'm joined by Peter Elwell, who's the Chair of our Groundworks Board of Directors. And I'm happy to have you change the slide. Thank you. I want to start by thanking the town of Brattleboro for all of the investments that have been made over the last year or more. There are so many things that we're doing right in this community that really differentiate Brattleboro from so many municipalities all over the country that are really making challenging situations far worse. Instead, Brattleboro is prioritizing collaboration. At Groundworks, we're so appreciative of our strong relationships with Brattleboro Police, Fire, and EMS. We're grateful for the town's investment in the BRAT unit and Justin Johnston's work, alongside the wonderful team of HCRS police social work liaisons. The situation table has been tremendously helpful in reaching across the broad sectors of human services to help solve tipping point issues for members of our community in the most vulnerable and high-risk situations. Several Groundworks staff have participated in the situation table, and I understand it's helped over 40 people in Brattleboro since its inception. Our work with One Brattleboro is really gelling into a bright model for collective impact in the state. The Community Homelessness Strategy Team has put 2 years of cross-sectoral work into understanding the needs around unsheltered homelessness in this community, and is supporting an effort that we hope will provide an extreme cold weather shelter this winter. Project CARE keeps us informed about harmful substances coming into the community and really helps to keep people safe. The staff at Brooks Memorial Library is doing amazing work every day to help as a resource for any number of our neighbors, housed and unhoused. We're putting the town's investments in human services funding into impactful use in our drop-in center, case management work, and at FoodWorks. We're providing truly life-saving, really truly life-saving services to members of our community, so many of whom lack the resources to compete for housing in this tight rental market. Here in Brattleboro, we face, oh, I'm sorry, Seth, that would be a new slide. Here in Brattleboro, we face the same systemic challenges that communities all over this country are facing. In Vermont, we are short at least 1,400 units of housing to meet the demand. This is an incredible place, and people of all social strata want to call Vermont home. Our housing market remains gridlocked with extremely low vacancy rates. As a result, we also have an affordability crisis, whereby a person making Vermont's minimum wage would need to work for 67 hours a week to afford a modest one-bedroom apartment at fair market rent. For a modest two-bedroom unit to be affordable at full-time work, the renter would need to be making nearly $30 an hour. Anywhere in this country, this combination of an affordability gap and scarcity of housing results in a homelessness crisis. National research shows that this formula is responsible for our high rates of homelessness, regardless of high versus low poverty rates. Peter and I were in Randolph today at the Housing and Homelessness Advocates of Vermont annual meeting, and it was striking to hear the same points made by both our Democratic state treasurer and the Republican administration saying the same thing, that we can agree that our homelessness crisis is driven by the extreme shortage of housing in this state. I'll take a new slide. Brattleboro's coordinated entry data shows the human impact of these challenges. Coordinated entry is the nationwide system of counting, tracking, and prioritizing people for housing opportunities according to the household's acuity of complex service needs. In Brattleboro, that master list is kept by Groundworks, with a network of assessment and referral partners sharing information as they enroll people experiencing homelessness. In the Brattleboro AHS district, that's the southern part of Windham County, 323 households are currently experiencing homelessness as of September 1st. This represents only the people who have completed a coordinated entry assessment with a service provider in this district and remain actively enrolled in services. 53 of these households are living unsheltered. I want to underscore, this is not just a Groundworks problem, this is not just a town of Brattleboro problem, it's a housing supply problem that's affecting every community in America. Seth, I'll take a new slide, thanks. At Groundworks, we're in the midst of a strategic planning process with a 3-year vision that very closely mirrors the vision of One Brattleboro. Together, we're working toward a healthy, safe, and resilient community where everyone has their basic needs met. At Groundworks, we envision a re-energized Brattleboro region where there's less human suffering, more social connection, and greater community collaboration across diverse perspectives. Our team is really taking seriously our part in this vision. We're waking up every morning to do our part toward this healthier community, and we know we'll achieve this vision together in a tight network of partners and collaborations. We see the strength and momentum and collective impact happening in Brattleboro right now, and we know that we can make visible progress together, meeting people's basic needs with dignity. Groundworkers are a determined, resourceful, and tenacious team with a deep understanding of the complexities of this work. Our perseverance begins with dignity for the people we serve and moves the dial incrementally each day toward long-term social change. We hold a firm commitment to increasing safety and reducing risk. Over the last few years, Groundworks has made a renewed commitment to clear and definitive policies and procedures, expanded training, and robust communication practices, all of which represent a through line to reducing risk and increasing safety. We uphold boundaries out of respect for each other and to promote a safe and healthy environment for program staff and participants. We set solid expectations for safe behavior and hold firm boundaries that do not allow for the use of substances on our properties. We believe in restorative practice, and our discharge policies include a duration of time that a client would need to stay away before coming in for a conversation to make commitments about how to maintain expectations for use of the space in the future. The challenges and adversity that we face in this work make meeting our mission more difficult with each passing week. We're working with micro solutions to help solve big systemic problems that are worsening here in Brattleboro, throughout the state, and throughout this country. The inflow into homelessness far outpaces the number of people we can house in this market. So our approach is to work with a continuum of services that include immediate crisis response. We're currently sheltering 34 people each night on South Main Street, with a consistent waiting list that ranges from anywhere from 2 to a recent high water mark of 17 people on a night in August. On our daytime services are utilized by as many as 100 people a day, and we're regularly feeding 70 or more people with our daily meal at the drop-in center. Our outreach team is providing support to anywhere from 50 to 70 unsheltered individuals in our community each week. Last week, we began the construction phase on a new 40-bed shelter on Royal Road. The new shelter is scheduled to open at this time next year. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We offer stabilization and support. Our FoodWorks program served over 4,700 of our neighbors last year, over 1,000 children, with anywhere from 60 to 110 new households shopping for the first time each month. Our case management teams are helping people gather documents and apply for housing opportunities. And our HealthWorks Act and other partnerships are helping people to access mental, physical, and behavioral health care, managing medications, providing mobile care that keeps people out of the emergency department, and helping people to access substance use treatment. And on the long-term path to permanence, we offer permanent supportive housing partnerships with the Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust, Brattleboro Housing Partnerships, and private landlords throughout the community, providing housing retention services that prevent people from sliding back into homelessness. Altogether, our programs served over 5,500 of our neighbors last year. Our community collaborations are what makes so many successes possible when we're dealing with big structural and systemic issues. From my vantage point, I see that we're on the right track in 3 key areas for achieving success. First, our continued partnerships. Our investments in town services, working together with multi-sectoral community service providers, including Groundworks, are creating a comprehensive community support system that is working. Second, and while we may not be able to move quickly, we are making progress on systems-level solutions. We need more housing units, not just more services. I sit on the Southeastern Vermont Community Housing Coalition and hear regularly about new housing in development. Supporting these housing developments is critical. I see it's a priority of the Select Board from your retreat. Thank you. And third, we have a healthy and resilient community in our sites, and we're making progress. We're moving from polarized debate to collective impact. We're beginning to all row in the same direction, and it shows. I see inspiration in our collective work every day. Despite all of the challenges we face, we're still housing people in this community. For example, multiple agencies, including Groundworks staff, have needed to work together to support an individual into housing because of myriad challenges in this person's past that made them ineligible for so many opportunities, despite this person's incredible hard work and resilience at every turn. This person has been feeling hopeless about ever being housed again, despite clear commitment and readiness to be an outstanding tenant. Multiple service providers vouched for this person's growth and determination, and they will be moving into housing later this month. Despite all odds, this community is finding a way. It takes a village to meet complex needs and help people to find stability. As a community, we're walking that path with people over and through barriers and challenges to stable housing, and none of us can do it alone. And as we look to the future, our current capital projects at Groundworks represent hope, impact, and expanded capacity to meet growing needs for our community. We've begun the construction phase on a new 40-bed shelter on Royal Road. That shelter will open at this time next year, more than doubling Groundworks shelter bed capacity, taking us from 34 to 74 beds. We're working to purchase 141 Canal Street, the property that has been home to the FoodWorks program since 2019. In order to continue to provide these services at this location, which we've determined is the right location for the program, and to finally address the maintenance needs there, we've entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the owner. Environmental challenges discovered in the standard review process have delayed the sale, but we remain committed to that location for its fit and for the accessibility that it affords our shoppers. We expect to wrap up the environmental mitigation work and close on that property in January, with renovations to follow. We're really proud to be part of this community's solution, and want to thank you for this time this evening.
Thank you very much, Libby. Peter, is there anything you'd like to say at this time? Or we'll
Happy to participate in the discussion that's going to happen next. Thank you.
Great, great. All right. So I want to say that, I'm a long-term supporter and fundraiser, actually, for Groundworks for many years. And I want to, and I understand that you have Becky Best is in a new position, and I understand she's doing a great job.
Yes, thank you for asking. Becky Best is the new Director of Shelters at Groundworks and is responsible for the drop-in center, coordinated entry, the outreach team, and will be overseeing a whole new staff in the new shelter a year from now.
Great. And I want to take a minute to honor the life and death of Leah Rosen Pritchard, and hope that you can respond to my questions about making sure that the staff and the clients at your facilities are safe with the safety plan. And I understand that Vermont OSHA made some recommendations, and I want to make sure that they've been completed. So let me just rattle them off for you. Do you have a lockable or keyless door system to the employee office area?
Yes.
Great. Secure bathrooms for employees?
Yes, we do.
Institute a weapons screening process?
Yes.
Establish designated areas for de-escalation of clients?
Yes, I would say we have that, yes.
Yeah, okay. Security present during working hours?
Our staff are trained, and so we don't have an outside security firm, but our staff have robust training in maintaining a calm and de-escalated environment.
Right, and that's in addition, that's identified here as a de-escalation training. And do you also establish among the staff training for minimum self-defense and training for escape?
Training for escape?
Escape.
Yes. We use CPI training, the Crisis Prevention Institute.
Great, and I'm really glad to hear all that. And I want to make sure that, I know that we work together in one Brattleboro. I want to make sure that first responders are called when needed, because there have been, someone has come to our meeting to report an episode where there was a person who tried to hang themselves and was not immediately, first response was not immediately called. Would you like to discuss that?
Sure, I can answer that question. Our staff, this is a situation that happened earlier this year. Our staff made a direct call to the HCRS Police Social Work Liaison. We did not call 911. We have debriefed that incident fully with town, police, fire, and EMS, and we have retrained our staff to say every time, although we really hope that would never happen again, that we would call 911 directly instead of going directly to the police social work liaison to help in that situation.
Great, that's really good to hear. Thank you. Anyone else? Amanda, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Hi, thank you for coming.
Thank
you. It's really nice of you to take the time. So, is it your mission to be a low barrier shelter? And if so, could you articulate the definition of low barrier? Because I've heard that thrown out.
Yeah. It's not our mission to specifically be a low barrier shelter. We have, a year from now, we will have multiple shelters, of which a low barrier shelter will be one option. The new shelter that we're building will be a much higher threshold to receive services there. But we do operate a low barrier shelter on South Main Street. And what we mean by that is that we do not allow the use of substances on site. That's an offense that can get you discharged from programming. But people who have used can come in to receive services if they are not disruptive to others. If they're ambulatory, they can walk around on their own, they can take care of themselves. And if they do not cause disturbance to other people using the shelter.
And so for the new shelter, the rules you're talking about that are not going to be low barrier, what does that mean exactly?
In this setting, we would, again, have a very firm policy about not using substances on site. We would expect people not to be using substances while they're staying there in that shelter. We would work with someone if it was an instance of for instance, a relapse or someone, we understand that relapse is part of people's recovery, that an abstinence-based program that would get you immediately kicked out would not be the exact right tool to help people in that journey. But we do have, again, as I was saying, a continuum of shelter at that point where if someone was having trouble with substance use, we could say, you know what, this doesn't feel like it's the right fit for you. Let's see if we can get you a bed at the low barrier shelter and still have a continuum of services that fits the needs of the people who are living, experiencing homelessness in the community.
Do you think it's essential to have a low barrier shelter rather than having higher accountability level for people to enter and cohabitate with others?
I think there's a life-saving element of offering low barrier shelter that, I think we understand that abstinence-based recovery has not worked for very many people, and that understanding that we want to support people in their journey on recovery, but that it need not be a requirement for receiving services. We have a mission to help get people housed, and if we decided to not provide services to people who were using substances, then there would be very few options for people to move through that housing search and retention programming that we offer.
And one more question about so there's no use in the building. What is the perimeter that no substance use is also? So how many feet, yards, miles from the shelter, the parking lot? What are your rules there?
We think about our property boundary as when we say we don't allow the use of substances on our property. That would be the perimeter.
Okay, so parking lot, sidewalk,
The
whatever.
sidewalk doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the town, but the parking lot is ours.
Peter, did you want to?
Yeah, I wanted to add two things. Thank you. About the differentiation between the shelter as it is being operated at 54 South Main Street and the one that we've just begun construction on will be operated differently at 81 Royal Road. In the design of the new shelter, it was some of the factors that have already been discussed this evening were taken into account. And so a couple of things I think are worth mentioning there are the openness of that shelter. The entire first floor is going to be visible to the staff, so that the walls on the first floor are going to be made of glass, so that there is, in terms of addressing the reducing of risk and the increasing of safety, an opportunity to make sure that as programming occurs and as meals are prepared and eaten and so on, all the activity that'll go on in the communal space, that staff is able to see everything at all times. In addition to that, in the access into the building, there will actually be an airlock, so you'll be able to come into the vestibule from the outside, but before coming into the shelter proper, you have to interact with a staff member and be buzzed in to that space. So a level of control that doesn't exist over at 54 South Main Street, but we think is important in incorporating into the incorporating into the design at 81 Royal Road. And then the bedroom spaces and bathroom spaces will be up on the second floor, also in an open corridor area. So obviously each of the spaces for bedrooms and bathrooms is private, but there'll be a corridor with cameras so that there's also an opportunity for staff to keep an eye on the shared space on the second floor at all times. These are things that really were impossible, despite the fact that there were cameras in place at 81 Royal Road in the farmhouse. It was impossible to have this level of openness and security in the space, but we're able to achieve that by building new on the site. And then on the question of the differentiation between the programming, we've made a commitment in part because we think it's the right thing to do in terms of Groundworks' overall operations and the continuum between homelessness and housing, and in part out of communications with the neighborhood at Morningside Commons around our plans and some of the concerns that some neighbors had raised, that we will bring into the program at 81 Royal Road people with whom we've already been working. So that could be somebody who's been sleeping at 54 South Main Street. It might be somebody who hasn't actually been accessing shelter services from Groundworks, but has either been regularly coming to FoodWorks, might be receiving other services. There could be case management services they might be receiving. They might be have a relationship with Groundworks outreach team. But unlike, and we think it is important that there be both of these available in the community, unlike the low barrier shelter that's already been discussed, and the fact that anyone who is able to, come in and care for themselves and not create disruption or threat of harm to anybody else in the space, unlike that space where just walking in the door is your entry into the potential of having services, certainly the day services that happens every day, and getting in the process for access to a bed. Unlike that, the 40 beds at 81 Royal Road will be allocated specifically to people that we know and have been working with and have a level of confidence that are ready for the higher expectations in the programming that we're going to offer at that site.
That's interesting. Thank you. But it's no longer going to be a family shelter. Is that?
It hasn't been a family shelter for years. Libby can probably speak to that in more detail than I'm able to, but I know for as long as I've been involved with Groundworks, it's been primarily and at times exclusively a shelter for adults. It was primarily and at times exclusively a shelter for adults at 81 Royal Road.
Okay. And Amanda spoke about drug use and low barrier and so forth. But I was wondering because I know you work closely with HCRS. Does HCRS screen your applicants for mental health or your clients?
No, but our staff make referrals to HCRS regularly. If there's a concern around a client's mental health, we have a quick and easy referral system to get people referrals for mental health, for substance use treatment, for any outreach services, for any number of services that we are able to tap into.
And what about criminal record? Do you review people's criminal records?
We're currently working on a broad, what we're calling a continuum of care release of information that includes police, fire, the hospital. There's a long list, I wish I had it in front of me, of partnering service agencies in the community. And we are steps away from implementing that as a part of our intake process. So before you can get a bed in the shelter, we ask you to sign this release of information that allows us to talk to any number of folks in the community.
Great. I'd like to learn more about that. I'd like to follow up on that with you. Anyone else? Isaac.
Just want to appreciate you for your deep commitment to our community. Dare I say lifelong commitment to the two of you, and I appreciate your leadership through some really difficult times over the last couple of years. I really can't underestimate that and can't thank you enough for what you and your organization are doing. And also appreciate the other folks at this table who have contributed in this room and on the screen who have contributed enormous amounts to this organization and to your vision of care with dignity and your partnership. That's a word that I heard that you said it in multiple ways, that you understand that you don't hold all the solutions, and just like the select board is not going to solve homelessness, you are not purporting to solve homelessness either, but you understand the power of working together with our municipal government, with the municipal workers, as well as other organizations. So thank you so much for that partnership, and thank you for what you've shared about your taking the concerns about safety very seriously. And I will say that myself, I feel safer in this community because of the work that you do, because you have relationships, and relationships are key to community and to our safety. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oscar.
Yeah, thank you both for coming. I also, it's a sad reality probably that operating a shelter is not the most glamorous work in the world, and you're probably never going to be the most popular organization in your community. So I want to say that I am also really grateful that Groundworks exists and that you're doing what you do and that it's as robust and thoughtful and strategic an organization as it is. You're doing something that is absolutely necessary, and Brattleboro would be far worse off if Groundworks didn't exist. And so I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
And that leaves Peter. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, no, I thank you, as always, for all the work you guys do. You know, I spend a lot of my time sort of defending some of our social service agencies to people who don't seem to understand the impact that you have on the community and how much worse off we would be without organizations like you, HCRS, SEVCA, Wyndham Windsor Housing. You know, these are a lot of organizations that spend a lot of time catching a lot of lightning without people having a full breadth of what you do and how you do it and why you do it. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's have comments from the public. I see Dick's hand shot right up, so then we'll have Gemma. And then Stephen.
Thank you. First and foremost, I am a resident down at Morningside. I am on the board of directors there. We have had many conversations with Libby and Peter. And there's a lot of issues that haven't been discussed here, issues that impacted my neighborhood greatly. And I haven't heard anybody talk about the residents and what happened there and how it impacted them. And with the shelter coming back, it has created a lot of consternation about their safety and also the safety of the staff. And that should be talked about. We have talked to them about things that we hope would be implemented. We asked for, but this request was not granted. We wanted a metal detector as part of the entry into the shelter. Peter talked about an airlock. An airlock does nothing when somebody has a duffel bag, and our neighbors are concerned. All the issues that were happening at Morningside went away after the untimely death of their staff person, which was drug use, noise, theft from vehicles. I don't know if there was any break-ins, I don't believe, but certainly theft from vehicles. And all of that stopped. And so when the shelter came back, and this is all things that Libby and Peter have heard, there's great unrest. Our neighborhood, our residency there's 166 units, and we have an elderly population. I would guess the median age would be somewhere over 60, and they have concerns. And I will say that Groundworks has done a lot to alleviate those concerns. There were issues there before the incident that they have addressed to us. They said that these issues are not going to happen again, but what if they do? The only thing that I can do is come here in the court of public opinion and say, we've talked to them, they're not addressing our concerns, where do I go? The residents of my neighborhood need the support of the select board, and it's great to have a shelter. It's not that I'm opposed for it. I'm actually right in the middle of the road, given what happened before and what was promised now. And I think that the board and the administration needs to be cognizant of that there's two sides to this wheel. Before we all go and wave the pom-poms, there's residents that are down there that were deeply affected by what happened. And we hope and we pray that nothing like that ever happens again. And so I would hope that most of the things that we've asked for have been granted, but the few things that we have asked for are not granted, I think are still pertinent to the safety of not only the residents at the shelter, the staff at the shelter, but the Morningside residents also.
Thank you, Dick. Let me just ask to follow up. One of the things that I rattled off was a weapon screening process, and so that does not include a metal detector. What is your process?
We have had multiple conversations with Brattleboro Police about some best practices around making sure that our signage is posted, that weapons are not allowed on the property. We have spent some time looking at the idea of metal detection and trying to figure out how to get that funded, and we will continue to look at that issue. We are thinking quite carefully about whether training our staff is the appropriate way to screen for weapons versus hiring an outside contractor to do that work. We went to our largest funder and asked about funding that work to the tune of about $100,000 to cover the cost of open hours, times when the stores are open, and that request was not granted. And so we are continuing to try to figure out how to do that.
And you're working with our police department?
We've had conversations with the police department about how to approach those situations. We have really strong communication to say we're worried about this person perhaps having a weapon, and being able to talk with the police about, would you send a Brat team unit to come and be present while we have this conversation? Or so those are the sorts of interventions that we're making now.
Great. It seems to me that you need to respond to Dick's questions about the fact that you are working with the neighbors, and for example, this question about weapons and your search for funding for a metal detector. I mean, that's something that is that part of the funding for the new shelter?
Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm addressing that because on behalf of Groundworks, I'm overseeing the shelter project and am in regular communication, regular being like at least weekly, and it's in the last several weeks been more frequent than that, with the chair of the board at Morningside, with the understanding that what I'm sharing with him, he's sharing with the whole community. And that, I want to make clear, is not something we feel like anybody needs to applaud. We feel like that's an obligation that we have to conduct a project like this. The disruption that we're going to cause during the period of construction is real, and we know that while some of the residents in the community have spoken up for our proposed shelter and been more welcoming, there certainly are other neighbors in the community that are extremely concerned, and certainly if they had had a vote would have voted no in terms of us continuing to operate a program at this site. So with all of that as context, we have made a firm commitment to stay in good, clear communication. I appreciate that Dick named that we've had extensive communication, and there have been quite a few asks, and we've granted almost all of them. We've tried to be very flexible about when we're beginning to approach either the physical structure, which is now pretty well defined, or the programming, which is as yet very minimally defined. We have the concept and the commitment to do the higher barrier operation, but as we've said to the neighbors, there are a lot of details yet to work out around how we'll actually conduct that program, and we look forward to staying in communication with the neighborhood around those details as we start to put them together. It'll be a year before people are sleeping at this location, so there's time on the programming piece. But there will be times, there will likely be occasions, as there have been a few already, when upon the end of real dialogue and real thoughtful consideration, we land in a place that's different. We haven't said no, as Libby's pointed out, we haven't said no to metal detection or a security person, but it is something that is outside the scope of what is generally funded by the state for the provision of services. And so, as she indicated, we've looked at whether that's an avenue for that funding, and it isn't. And so we're continuing to give consideration to how does that fit into the work that we do and the work we will do at this site, and is there a funder who is interested in providing that?
It just seems to me that it is part of one of the OSHA items, and so
I'm glad you raised that. May I, or did you have more?
Please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Over the last few years, I've had the opportunity to serve Groundworks in a few different capacities. And at the time of the VOSHA review and findings, I was actually a member of staff and had gone back onto the board since then. And I was the staff person who actually was the primary contact with VOSHA throughout their process. And I want to stress, and feel free, you or we could contact the folks up at VOSHA and have a conversation and make sure so you're satisfied that they would represent this the same way as I am. They were really clear with us that there are initial findings that they make, particularly in a situation like this, which is an unusual workplace incident for them, not something they had dealt with previously.
I think it's an unusual workplace situation for everyone.
Thank goodness, yeah. And so, so they were really clear when they made their initial findings that they wanted to have an interactive process with us. They didn't want to just lay a list on us and say, go do these things. And over the space of 6 to 8 weeks, we had an extended interactive process, landed in a place where the expectation for addressing the different topics that you've named was clear and documented, and where it was understood that there was additional work we needed to do around those things, and very specifically around the question of placing a security guard at the door, that we weren't able to make a commitment to that. We were doing what we thought was good and important follow-up on that through the additional policies that we put in place and through the additional training that we provided to our staff, but we couldn't make a commitment to actually paying for a security person at the door without having the funding to pay a security person at the door. And VOSHA was completely understanding of that and satisfied with the way we had addressed the intent of their finding.
And which leads me to think that as fundraising, and you raise funds all the time, that those two items, those two safety and security items, would be a priority for your fundraising, especially in light of, outfitting the new shelter. And I wondered, is it a priority for your funding for the new shelter? Are you raising money specifically for this purpose to ensure the safety of your staff, the clients, and the neighbors?
So the science is actually mixed on this, and I'm not well enough versed in that science to speak as an expert on it. I would just note that we shouldn't assume that a metal detector or a uniformed security person at the door necessarily makes people on the premises or near the premises safer. And that's something that, again, as part of the full mix of considering these things, there's a funding issue and there's a implementation issue. Like, what would it be that we would implement if there was funding available? And those things are not fixed. They're in the mix of consideration. As I said, in the communication with VOSHA, they were quite clear to us that the steps we took that have made the situation in our operations, even at 54 South Main Street, and definitely in the way that we've approached the 81 Railroad project, materially, we have materially reduced risk and increased safety in the operations of Groundworks services. It was acknowledged that not every particular detail would necessarily be as it was originally written, and that question of a person and or a metal detector piece of equipment is
It's something you're pondering.
It's
Libby said she was pondering.
something I'd say actively considering,
Actively considering.
but not determined that it's simply a matter of someone writing a check for it. I want to be careful that we don't leave the impression that it's just a matter of someone writing a check for it.
Okay. Anyone else?
I would love to
Go
say
ahead.
something as a board member. I know time is moving on. As a select board member, and I would agree that probably everyone at this table considers the safety of everyone in our community of the utmost importance. Your employees, your residents, your neighbors at both shelters. Hearing you talk about how many communications you've had with the Morningside community, I wonder, I'd like to learn how many conversations you've had with the South Main Street community and everyone going, do you have conversations with them? Because that's very important, because conversations, as you've talked about your partnerships within town, emergency services, police are vitally important, but the safety, please consider having a metal detector. We make choices as town select board members to spend tax dollars of taxpayers in Brattleboro. Do we want to spend that money? Do people want to pay more taxes? No, they don't. But we have to, because we need operating roads, and we need a police department, and we need a fire department, and we need a library. We make those choices all the time. As a nonprofit in Brattleboro, please consider the seriousness of making choices to keep people safe. Thank you.
Okay, so Gemma and Stephen, and then the man straight ahead of me.
Hi, Gemma Seymour, District 8 RTM and Brattleboro Planning Commission. I have a couple of questions about the housing issues that are in your presentation, specifically the data points. Under housing affordability, you list a number of statistics about wages and how much it costs to afford housing in this town. Where is that data coming from? Is it publicly accessible? Do you have links for it that you could provide?
Yeah. Can I answer the question directly, or?
Address me.
I'm sorry.
And then I'll ask Libby, and we will proceed.
On that note, I will just continue then. Secondly, under housing shortage, some quotes are provided from the Vermont Housing Needs Assessment 2025 to 2029. I'm wondering where that comes from and whether or not it's accessible, because that data will be important for my work for the town. Thirdly, there was a somewhat of a census given of the number of homeless people in this town, unhoused households, which is sort of an oxymoron. But what I am not seeing under this list is a hard number of how many actual individuals are experiencing homelessness in this town. And I'm wondering if that data is also available. Okay. Finally, I have this is not a question really so much, but a statement, and that I understand while safety is very important to everyone in this town, especially for the staff, we also have to remember that this is the United States of America, and this is the state of Vermont. And the right to keep and bear arms is a civil right in this country, in this state, and in this town that is protected. And I'm very curious as to how people seem to think that people give up their rights because they're homeless. I understand that Groundworks and every other organization has the right to ban weapons from their property, but people who are homeless, by definition, do not have a place to put things. And so when they walk in that door, they're not giving up their rights, just as none of us who have houses in this town would give up our rights by walking in that door. So I'm curious as to how Groundworks is going to go about protecting the rights of the people that they care for. Thank you.
Libby, would you like to give sources for your data? And maybe you'd like to, if you can't speak to it now, maybe you could contact Gemma separately with chapter and verse.
Okay, I think I have answers to all of Gemma's questions. The data on the affordability gap comes from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. They do that survey of the housing wage for every state in the nation, and the numbers that I was giving were Vermont numbers, not Brattleboro numbers. The Vermont Housing Needs Assessment comes from the Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development. We heard a presentation today from the commissioner offering the same numbers. I would imagine they are all available on the website for that state department. Unsheltered numbers of unduplicated people, our outreach team does keep that information. The information that we provided in the slide was from the coordinated entry list, which provides household data. So those were 53 households. Our team might in the course of a week or a month meet up to 70 perhaps people who are at any given time unsheltered in the community. And they are keeping unduplicated numbers. I do not have those with me today, but we can, if you want to send me an email, we can get you those numbers. And then protecting the rights of people around the right to own firearms. We have an agreement with the Brattleboro Police Department that if someone is literally homeless, if they are needing to access shelter, that we can offer them a chance to store their firearm with the Brattleboro Police Department. And we have had people take us up on that offer.
Okay, so let's hear Stephen and the gentleman in the back, and maybe one more person, and that's it.
Hey, guys.
You.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Stephen.
Steve Peterson, District 7. It seems to me like homelessness is only going to get a lot worse. And with AI coming and flushing people out of the job market, we're going to get hit with so much more need, and we need to get this right. And I believe the work you're doing is noble, but I also think it needs to take into account other people. I'm deeply surprised that you're having to beg them to communicate to your neighbors. That should be mandatory. I don't think your work, any industry, any operation has impact on the community around them. And just because you're doing noble work doesn't mean you get to ignore the needs of those around you. I think people need to think about location. So it really struck me that you said low barrier, so users can come, but they can't do it on the property. So you're saying your business model is to surround the downtown with all of your users. And it's up to these people to pay to pick up the needles. I've spoken with municipal people who say they spend significant portions every week of our tax dollars, not fixing roads, not doing washouts, but cleaning up your business model. That's not fair. And I think that we have to have a mature conversation, to your point, about collaboration, about what makes sense to put where. I think the minute you say, low barrier, not on our property, you're consigning everybody in your neighborhood. If this continues with AI coming, how close are we to a downtown doom loop? And are we communicating enough to prevent that? There are win-win-win-win-win solutions. But putting that business model, you can do drugs just right over the road there, downtown, where we need businesses to bring tourists in, that's madness. That's like putting a pine tree over your strawberry field. Why don't we have conversations about the right place to do things? Because guess what? Need is coming. We're about to get slammed in this country, but we're doing it wrong. Unless you don't care about downtown or businesses or more people overdosing and the scissors people leaving, I think we need to have an honest, deep, mature conversation about location. So when this stuff hits us more, we're ready for it and we can put the strawberry patch and the oak trees where they ought to be instead of destroying one another. We need downtown. We need the business. We need the tax revenue so that we could fund your noble work. But I think we should talk about location. And I know with closing, there have been some ideas about the school for the deaf or somewhere up on Putney Road or things that wouldn't completely fry our business district. But that wasn't just ideal, and so that was rejected. That's not okay. We have to have truly collaborative conversations about location.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, you, sir.
Bill Harvey, District 8. Thank you very much for the work you're doing. I think it's an awesome job considering what you have to deal with. I want to appreciate Amanda's comment earlier concerning protecting Vermonters' tax dollars. My interest is in Vermonters' tax dollars, and I am really curious whether or not there is a residency check for people that we are helping. I don't mind Vermont tax dollars going to help Vermonters. It seems like we have become an easy mark for outer staters to come over to the line and take advantage of the great service that we have. We're Vermont. Other states need to take care of their own. And there should either be a residency check for these people we are dealing with, or there should be a residency commitment so that when they graduate from the program, they can become contributors. With that said, I'm also curious if there is an incentive program for people to move on from the help they're getting. And what would that incentive look like? And how can we, as people in Brattleboro, come alongside of you to help with that incentive program so that we just don't start to accumulate more and more people who are in need?
Thank you, Bill. Would either of you like to comment on Bill's commentary about residency and or some sort of graduation throughput?
I'll take the graduation throughput. Okay. Wouldn't it be great if we could? There are lots of ways in which, not just Groundworks, but other organizations that are working with people as they move from homelessness into housing do continue to support those individuals. And so I think, all kidding aside about, a graduation gift or something, it doesn't end. The relationship doesn't end when the person gets keys to an apartment. It's very important that we, as a community, frankly, but those of us who do this work in the community, continue to work with folks to help make sure that housing is sustainable for people who do achieve housing. But there isn't a program that provides a stipend to help people launch into that housing arrangement.
And I will say that the residency requirement is more of a state issue. Do you ask people where they're from?
We do.
And what do you find?
We collect that data in the drop-in center in particular, and what we find is that primarily, and this is national research bears this out for every county in this country, for the most part, the vast majority of people who are accessing homeless services are accessing them in the community in which they were last permanently housed. So in the community in which they entered into homelessness.
And I'm sorry, we're done?
You go ahead.
Well, I just want to say there's an actual data point so for the data that we collect, it's obviously not on the tips of our tongues. There is, Libby's characterization is, the overwhelming majority are in the community where they last experienced homelessness, and we can provide data to support that in terms of our numbers. But one that is clear and easy to remember because of the way in which it came about was about a year ago, maybe closer to 2 now, Brave Little State, I believe it was, but one of the statewide radio organizations did an analysis because of the question that was being asked, this very concern, which is a legitimate concern of are we attracting folks in need that are then creating costs and other impacts in Vermont, was this question, because it was a statewide question. So they looked at the participation, they used state of Vermont data looking at participation in the motel program statewide, and separately looked at a survey that had been done by End Homelessness Vermont. So there was data from the sort of perspective of people experiencing homelessness and data from the state of Vermont in its administration of the motel program. And in both cases, it was 96% were people whose last actual home with an address was in Vermont, and 4% were from outside Vermont. And it was done in real time, approximately the same time by these two very different organizations. So it's a widely accepted, accurate figure.
While at the same time, Brattleboro's own data for first responders says that 85% of the first responder calls to the motel program were from out of town, and 30% was from out of state. So reconciling those two data points is important.
Can I respond to that data point? Because I sit in one Brattleboro where that data point came out. My understanding of that data point, and John, you were there, maybe you could confirm this, was that the calls were made about people who were not enrolled in the motel program, but were conducting activities that needed the help of the police department, but were not people who were enrolled in the motel program, having those out-of-state addresses.
I think that's a mixture of drug dealers and the people that they prey upon.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yes. Our last caller is the woman in the doorway.
My name's Ashlyn Gates. I am somebody that has been a resident in Groundworks, and I also have had addiction issues, and I just have seen a lot of things that have happened firsthand where staff actually truly does not know how to handle it, and I just wanted to step up and speak on that and just let you guys know that you might need to show people more on CPR and Narcan. I have seizures, and I have been Narcaned unnecessarily because of it, and it has caused me more issues because of the fact that staff doesn't know the difference between the two. And also, I think just putting people that are mentally ill, just giving them a hotel or putting them in an apartment, that's not actually helping them with their problem. Yes, they're homeless, but they're going to be homeless. They're on their own either way. And I think we do need help to be able to relearn how to take care of ourselves, which sounds crazy, but I don't know if there's some way to try and have more support in mental health also. That's all I really wanted to say. I just wanted to put that out there.
All right. That's it for this topic. It's been a very interesting discussion. I want to thank you both very much for coming and for the work you do and for answering all our pesky questions.
Thank you. Thank you both.
All right. Next item, Smoke and Munch second-class liquor license?
Yep.
Who's that?
Do we have the applicant for this license here in attendance?
Madam Chair, when do we plan to take a break?
Well, we usually take a break at 8 o'clock. Can you wait 10 minutes?
John, I don't think anyone heard you when you asked that question.
Is the applicant for Smoke and Munch here present, Mr. Sajan? Is Mr. Sajan here?
Is he online?
Is he online? Yeah. Oh, we got him. Great. Well, Seth is finding him.
Why don't we take our 5 minutes now?
Okay.
Go ahead. Let's call the meeting back to order. Thank you all very much. And we are looking for the gentleman from Smoke and Munch. I understand he's...
And I'll just introduce it, Liz, if you like. So we've had a renewal application for Smoke and Munch located at 707 Putney Road for their second-class liquor license, tobacco license, and tobacco substitute endorsement permit. And the proprietor, Mr. Sajan, is here to talk with the board because although the staff are recommending that you approve this, it was brought to our attention that there were some tobacco compliance violations in September and December of 2023, and again in June of 2024, and that the select board had not had a chance to check in with you on this since those happened, and this is the first opportunity for the renewal, and it is our policy to check in with folks who've had violations to see that they are addressing those and correcting them. And so if the chair wishes, we might ask Mr. Sajan to explain the violations that occurred and what he has done to rectify that.
I do wish. So would you please, Mr. Sajan, tell us about these violations and what actions you've done to correct them?
Oh, Seth.
Oh, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, so hold on just a second. Seth, how's that going?
Mohammed, VCTV is telling me that you don't have a mic. Could you just double check the interface on your phone?
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity for the Vermont and town of Brattleboro granting me opportunity to do the business. And I'm Sajan, growing entrepreneurs. And coming to the straight point, because I had an employee in our store. He was doing very well, and after a while, he became a little bit irresponsible. You know what? On the shift, duty and responsibilities. And we had occurred the incidents. You know what? He has sold to the minor by mistakenly because he was using all the time on the phone. So that what I mean. He was irresponsible doing the job. He was holding phone all the time, and he didn't check the ID first time. So I have given an excuse for him for that employee on September's and after the month, and he made the same mistake again. I have given a third chance for him too, and he made another mistake again. So I couldn't hold with him, so I have to take him out of the business or from the job. Then after that, I have hired two responsible employee and well-trained employee to check the ID and compliments to protect the community too, and to serve the community according to the law. And they have done very well. And I have another new employees working also well-trained for the checking IDs and to work on this tobacco complaints as well, the product not to go to under 21 years old. And plus, I have implemented the new POS system, which is a point of sale systems that, will not allow sales that if you scan the ID, so it will not allow to go for the sales. It will stop the transaction if they are under 21 years old. So those things are helping me a lot to protect these kind of mistakes to happen.
Great, thank you. Are there select board members who would like to comment? Isaac?
Well, thank you, Mr. Sajan, for taking the time to speak with us and taking this issue seriously. Because I think at least for myself and many of the people that I've spoken with, we have concerns about addiction in our community and about substance use, tobacco use, and other substances by minors in our community. I am interested to hear, first of all, a little bit about there were 3 violations in a 9-month period, and it sounds to me that it was just one staff member who was...
the same staff member, they did a mistake, so I have given up because I was offering a job because he was doing very well. Then after that, he got a phone user, the working in the job, his phone is now unavoidable. So so the same person was doing the same 3 mistakes. After that, I take him out of the job because, he was repeating the same mistake again.
My question is, if times that he was caught, there were 3 violations, isn't it quite likely that there were many more mistakes made by this staff member over that 9-month period?
No, I was after the first mistake. I was really concerned. I was really behind him to not to repeat the mistake again, and I was keeping it repeating and but eventually it was a phone addiction that he was not paying attention for the customers. So those kind of things, really. So after the third mistakes, and I just really didn't want to take a risk of it, doing the same mistake. So I really take him out of the jobs, and I went to the Vermont State of the Liquor and Tobacco. So I was discussed with them to finalize these issues, and I have mentioned them that I have fired this person. So they're okay with that, and then we continue the regular business. Yes.
And then, if I may, Madam Chair, my second question is, when was the technology implemented?
After the third mistake happened, so we implemented a new system that we are scanning the ID most of the times, and it will allow us to not to sell to the minor. So we always checking the ID, and we manually we are checking too, and we are scanning the ID too. So we are taking like 2 steps, and plus every sales without ID or without any without ID scanning, and it won't allow to sell them. It's going to be identified. This is minor, or this is under 21 years or over 21 years old.
Thank you. Accountability is so important at all levels of our community, and I appreciate your answering these questions.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
I want to appreciate that you got to work and made a change to run your business better. I would like to know about how you do your trainings for your employees.
First of all, I train personally how to deal with this because I have experience on it. And second of all, that we have a training program with the Vermont State that we go through that and with the training programs, so they will be more familiar with that.
Great. Anyone else? Anyone like to make a motion? Oh, we'll hear from the public. Does anyone from the public have comments on this matter?
Yeah, I would like to. Should I make a motion first?
You certainly may.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate the work you've done, and I know that, it, like Isaac said, it's our responsibility to take these matters seriously as a select board, because we are the body that decides whether someone can have the privilege of having a liquor license. And we take that very seriously, and we think that our businesses should take that seriously too. So I'm throwing this motion out, and we can discuss it and hear from the public too. To approve the renewal of applications for Smoke and Munch located at 707 Putney Road for their second-class liquor license, tobacco license, and tobacco substitute endorsement permit under the following conditions: that the tobacco license is renewed for 6 months with the understanding that Smoke and Munch will ensure that all of its employees have taken a tobacco training course certified by the Vermont Department of Liquor and Lottery, and that employees are carding all customers of tobacco products with visual check of ID. It's recommended by me that this training actually is an in-person training and not merely an online training.
First, let's ask the gentleman if, how does he find those conditions? Is he able to comply with those conditions?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So I can carry out, I'm also certified for that training, so I can train, I train in person every time. Every day is a reminder for them. I'm training every day. And also I can do in-person training is available, so, and I can send them for the in-person training. And also I really agree with your terms.
Great. Okay.
May I also say, so we had a conversation with Cassandra Holloway, who actually thought that all of our select boards should also take a training, and that the compliance organization really wants it to be information educational for all. So I hope it's good.
Sure.
Are there comments from the public? I think someone, yes, Rick.
Rick Sprite, District 3 rep. The good gentleman, for all his best intentions, I don't believe actually answered Isaac's questions. He danced around them, but he did not answer them. So I'm not speaking in favor or against what you're doing, but I'd just like to point that out.
He did agree to these conditions, and he did identify the training that was proposed. So if we're going to hold him to the...
Excuse me. So after the third incident, and we never had any issues, violence, or anything happen. It's been almost more than 1 year now.
Great. Thank you very
So
much.
we are working on.
Amanda has made a motion, and are we ready to vote on it? Great. Amanda moved to approve the renewal of applications for Smoke and Munch located at 707 Putney Road for their second-class liquor license, tobacco license, and tobacco substitute endorsement permit under the following conditions: that the tobacco license is renewed for 6 months with the understanding that Smoke and Munch will ensure that all of its employees have taken a tobacco training course certified by the Vermont Department of Liquor and Lottery, and that employees are carding all customers of tobacco products with a visual check of ID. All select board members in favor of that motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Sorry, Gemma.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, moving right along, let's talk about the review of the draft charter and discuss related petitions. And for that, I'll ask Kate O'Connor and Peter Elwell to come to the table. Oh, Maya. Thank you very much, Maya. Anyone else from the committee? All right. Before you begin, I would just like to again thank you all for the intense commitment of time that you've made to our community for the work that you do. It's much appreciated by all. John, do you want to introduce this in some way?
I could. So the Charter Review Commission joined you at, I believe, your one of your July meetings, and you had a preliminary discussion about several proposals that the Charter Commission was advancing at that time. There's since been some developments around some citizen charter petitions that have circulated in the community, one of which are actually now, both have now been certified by the town clerk's office as having adequate signatures. So those petition, and the first one is in your packet, and that was the one for Australian ballot. The second one that was for the open town meeting, I will put in your packet for your next meeting, but it was just certified today.
All right.
And so the Charter Commission has also written you a letter and provided you with a draft version of the charter, including a red line, which is also in your packet tonight. And I believe that they wanted to speak with you about how things proceed from here.
Okay, great. So again, we have Kate O'Connor, Maya Hasegawa, and Joy Trudeau. And please tell us what you want to tell us.
Great. And I also want to introduce Hannah Clarice, who was on the Charter Revision Commission, Denise Glover, who was on the Charter Revision Commission, and Peter Elwell, who was here, and he's also on the Charter Revision Commission. As John said, and as you folks I know remember, we were here on July 9th to sort of talk to you about where we were. Tonight we come bearing a gift, which is our draft charter as of September 1st, 2025. And there's two versions of the same charter. One of them is the red line version, so you can actually see what we added and what we took out. And then there's the clean, as we're calling it, the clean copy, which you can read it a lot easier. It's located for people in the public. You can get it on the select board page with the backup material for this meeting, but it's also on the charter review page of the Brattleboro Town website if anybody wants to read both or either version. The charter that we have tonight is a product of 42 public meetings over more than a 2-year span of time. I've noticed there are some people here that have come to our meetings. They were all publicly warned. You can watch them on BCTV if you missed any of them. So we put a lot of work into it. We began, again, 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, by reviewing all of the work of the previous charter commissions. We reviewed the history of representative town meeting. We sought input from every department head, every town committee, select board members, the town attorney, the town clerk. We also did a review of the 102 other town charters that were voted on by the legislature. So we took a lot of time to do a lot of background information that informed what you have in your packets tonight. One of the things that was of paramount importance to us was public participation. We took public participation seriously at our meetings, and again, anybody who went to a meeting knows that our listening to the public was encouraged by us, and comments were always solicited when anybody wanted to make one. As we said, we were here in July. When we were here in July, that was before the 2 petitions that John mentioned were circulated calling for Australian ballot and the other one calling for open town meeting. So when we were here in July, our intent was to come back to you this evening and say, would you put our charter on the ballot for a vote on November 4th? But seeing that we have now not 1, but 2 charters that have been certified, we think, or 2 petitions that have been certified. We believe that that request to put our petition on the ballot for November 4th is premature as we sit here right now. So what we'd like to do is come back to you when you folks have decided what you're going to do with those 2 charters. We have a meeting that we have scheduled on September 18th to look at our charter again. But I can assure you on behalf of all of us that when you are ready to have that conversation with us about when our charter goes up, we will have our charter done. And what we've been planning, and which depends on your conversations, I mean, we're ready to have public discussion about all of our charter recommendations. And as you can see, when you look at the red and the green lines, we have lots of recommendations. So we're ready to present them to the public whenever you are ready to tell us to present them or have us present them to the public. But tonight, we're happy to answer any questions you may have or any questions anybody has. We're proud of the work we've done. We've spent a lot of time doing it. We're this close to being there, and we will be ready when you have figured out what you want to do with these other petitions. So thank you for letting us come tonight. And again, we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Kate, my first question is, in reading the work that you've done, it assumes that RTM is no longer, yet you are not suggesting that we put that on the ballot as a separate question.
We're not suggesting that we put RTM on the ballot as a separate question. Well, as it's our understanding, and the town attorney can talk to this, that is the first question that needs to be asked if we're going to change our form of government. And that's not a charter change. That's per state statute. That the first question, it would come before an open town meeting question, it would come before an Australian ballot question is, do you, the voter, want to rescind representative town meeting?
Right. But you've written your charter draft under that assumption.
Under the assumption that RTM will go away? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we had to, our job when we started this, 2.5 years ago, when we first sat down, was to go over the entire charter and make recommendations to our fellow citizens about what we thought would be the, best form of anything. If you look, it's not just about representative town meeting. And through our discussions and through our listening to the public, through everything that we heard over the many meetings that we met, we came to the conclusion that open town meeting is the best form of town meeting for the town of Brattleboro. So
But in that conclusion, the byproduct of that conclusion is that you do not believe that RTM is the best form of government for our community.
Based on, again, our 42 meetings, what we've heard, and we have listened and we have heard what everybody in the public said. Based on everything we've heard, everything we have discussed, we believe that open town meeting that's what we're recommending, because we believe that based on everything we have heard from the people that like representative town meeting, from the people that say representative town meeting isn't the way to go, from the people that think open town meeting is the way to go, from the people that think Australian ballot is the way to go, all of that listening that we have done has come to us is that balancing what everybody has told us, that really open town meeting is what we're hearing from everybody, what we're hearing. Well, not to say that everyone in Australian ballots go, that's what you're hearing from us. What we're hearing is everybody wants to be, everybody wants everyone to be represented. Or not everybody, again, I don't like to say that, but there's a different, that the majority of the people that we are hearing from want to have a discussion. They also want everyone to be able to take part in our town government. And from our point of view as a commission, that is through open town meeting.
Thank you. Okay, so let's hear from Bob, but just one more question, Kate, for you. Because the charter says that the select board, upon receipt of a petition, shall place an article in the warning for the next annual town meeting. Mm-hmm. So the two petitions that we have are pretty much required to be in March. Mm-hmm. So it would seem to me that all of these questions should best be conducted in March.
Yeah, and I think tonight, that's why we are saying to you, putting our petition or putting our charter recommendations on in November and putting the other two petitions on in March, it's back, it's premature to ask you to put ours on in November.
I would agree. Let's hear from Bob.
Thank you. It's my recommendation that the board set the vote on whether or not to discontinue representative town meeting form of government for a special meeting on November 4th. The reason that I recommend that is that both petitions, as well as all the work that the Charter Review Commission has done, when Kate says we're hearing that folks are saying we want to have everyone counted, whether it's the Australian ballot or whether it's open town meeting, that's assuming that people want to discontinue representative town meeting form of government. So my recommendation is that you hold a special meeting, which is based on the statute of once you vote to have representative town meeting, you continue doing that until there is a vote to discontinue it. I think that vote has to come first. Once you have that vote, then you have two. Let's go either way here, okay? If representative town meeting is sustained, we're going to continue that, and we're going to prepare for a representative town meeting in March, the same way we would do. All of the same budget, same appointments, etc. You're still going to put both charter petitions on for the first Tuesday in March ballot question because they've been petitioned as charter changes. So you have to put those on for a vote. And so, yes, you would be voting potentially you could have a vote in November if you so chose to have that vote. And let's say representative town meeting is continued in November, you're still going to vote on that in March, but your March meeting still would be representative town meeting the third Saturday, because that charter wouldn't go, even assuming that there's a vote in March to discontinue representative town meeting, as a charter change, that wouldn't take effect until the legislature approves it. So for 2026, if the vote in November is to sustain representative town meeting, you're going to have a representative town meeting in March of 2026. Now, if you go to a vote in November and the vote is discontinue representative town meeting, then you're going to prepare for what is an open town meeting for March. And at that meeting, you're still going to have the petitioned articles, except there would be a technical correction of the first. Both of these petitions have two articles, the first being whether to discontinue. Well, is the second one say that? No. The second one, only the first one. But the first one has the shall we discontinue. If that's already been decided, then that would be stricken from the warning as a technical correction. But then you would be voting in March on whether to do Australian ballot or to continue open town meeting as a petitioned charter change. But your actual town meeting for March 2026 would be an open town meeting. And from my perspective, it makes sense to know what to prepare for in March by having a vote on whether or not to continue representative town meeting in November. Do you want to add anything?
No, that's, that is, that's our position as town attorneys, and it's, as a member of the Charter Review Commission, we have been looking for pretty much the entire time we've been going through this process on a way to get townwide input, and this would also give the opportunity for us to guide our work and all this work we put into the charter. If the town voted to continue with RTM, then we know we wouldn't have to pursue it any further, or in the alternative to adapt it to whatever town wants.
Okay. Let's ask some more questions about the petition. What happens if the petitions pass? For example, how would a petition, when you have the two essentially competing petitions, how do you say one versus the other?
You can't.
And so what does that mean in practical terms?
It means that they could both pass, and it would be up to the state legislature to decide which, if any, to ratify.
Now, we would hope that the typical voter would apply some common sense and actually read the articles, because the two petitions are quite different. One's open town meeting and one is Australian ballot.
Yeah.
So you figure you would, if you vote yes on one, you'd vote no on the other, but it's possible.
Yeah. But so the question then is, or the answer is, that the one with the most votes wins.
No.
No. Each article, the petitioned article, if there are more yes votes than no votes on that article passes or fails. And so that's where Hannah says it's possible that both articles pass. If that's the case, we say, here you go, legislature.
All right,
you figure it out.
All right, so there could be an additional article that the select board could place on the ballot that says, if both articles pass, what do you want? So that the voters of our town can make that determination, right? It's essentially voting twice, but it gives us control over what the voting public actually wants. Because these two petitions, each petition is an island in itself. So in order to understand them in relative terms, I think the select board would have to make a fourth article that says, if both petitions pass, what do you want to do? And then that would allow the majority vote to be sustained.
How would they? So with these petitions and even with the charter revision, the way it would be presented to the public would be in a strike-through and addition change to the charter. So, I mean, there might be a way to do that as some sort of like advisory vote or binding vote, but in terms of actually what the charter looks like, you wouldn't be able to present that.
Well, I'm not talking about the charter. I'm talking about.
You're just talking then
I'm talking about
not a
the
charter
petitions.
change, but an article for the first Tuesday that in order of the articles would be in the event that the answer to the prior two, if both pass, then what do you want to do? I suppose it's legally possible to do that. I would actually suggest that that confuses the matter even more, because then you're raising the question of both of them passing when really each petition is exclusive to the other. So I've had conversations with both sets of petitioners as to, in some respects, it's unfortunate we've had these petitions from my perspective because it complicates the big question of whether to continue RTM or not. And with regard to the second petition that was certified today, those petitioners decided to go forward with that, but then it creates the possibility of two articles where both articles could pass, whereas if you didn't have it, you'd have a lobbying group saying vote yes for Australian ballot and a lobbying group saying no, vote against it because the default is open town meeting. The way it's worked is we have two certified petitions, and I think we just let it go to see how the votes go. Theoretically, if you want Australian ballot, you're going to vote yes on that one and no on the open town meeting and vice versa. But it's legally possible that both pass.
All right. Let's hear from the public.
Can we ask?
Oh, sure. You have questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Several. Thank you both. Questions in no particular order, and I think just approaching this completely as how do we make this the least confusing and weird process that still remains to us. So bear with me. So you said if we're considering as the tentative plan, the RTM vote in November, both petitions go on the ballot in March. You said that if the RTM vote is, well, after the RTM vote, that we could make a technical correction to the petition for March and get rid of Article 1 on the first petition because it's already been answered. That's something we can do?
Only in the event that the vote is to discontinue RTM in November.
Okay, because then
that's already been addressed, so you don't need to vote on that twice because it's already been discontinued.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. What if we put on the ballot in November RTM yes or no, second question, open town meeting or Australian ballot, and then once both of those questions are answered in November, don't all of the petitions in March then become completely moot and subject to technical correction, and we have our answer and we're all free?
Would you be doing that as a charter change or just a vote? Because the petitioned articles are for charter changes. Now, the select board has the ability on its own motion to create a charter change, but then you're going to have your whole charter ready to go. So it's not so much I get what you're saying of just voting on the choice, but if you do it as a charter change, you've got to have your charter all prepared.
Okay. No, that doesn't sound that appealing.
Let me know when you find something that sounds appealing.
Yeah. So you referenced in the current charter, I think, that this is just a clarification, that the petitions have to go on at the next town meeting. Does that have to be?
It's actually by statute.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so does that mean, because we had heard before they have to be at latest at March, is it only that they can go on at March, or is it that we could call a special meeting ahead of time?
You can't call a special meeting. Once a petition for a charter change comes in by petition, it's then, depending on the notice provisions, at your next annual meeting, your next primary, or your next general election. Well, we don't have a general election this year, and we don't have the primary this year. Or
Okay.
we're past it any.
Okay, because I
date
think
anyway.
I had at least heard before that we could do it at any point up until March, but just to be clear, you're saying it is only March.
One other thing to note on that is that under the statute, you have to hold a informational meeting at least 30 days before the vote, and that needs to be warned 30 to 40 days before that. So you basically have a 60-day lead time for warning those two votes.
So we're past that already
Yeah,
today.
For November.
For November.
Okay. Thinking, then I guess my only other questions are if we're thinking about the idea of RTM vote in November, petitions on in March, at some point in this discussion, I'd like to hear, I know there was some question of the logistics about doing an election in November, so maybe hearing a little from John, or maybe that's all fine, and then also hearing what the Charter Review Commission thinks of that general idea. But those are all my questions.
Well, there's logistics around whatever you all choose to do. I wouldn't want that to be an obstacle to your process. Once you know what you want to do, we can figure that out and let you know what it would cost.
Cool. And
Are there other select board members who have questions of the panelists before I open it up to the public?
Questions for these people? Nothing personal. So, I spend a lot of time saying democracy doesn't move quick and it's confusing. If you ever doubted that statement, here we are. All right, so it's your recommendation is to put RTM on the ballot in November, up and down, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then you just made a statement that we're past the window to do that.
No.
We're not.
Past the window for petitions.
Past the window to
Petitions.
warn for the
Okay,
petition.
thank you for that clarification. All right. So explain to me, RTM goes on the ballot on November 4th, vote up or down, simple one, yes or no, you like it, you don't like it, whatever. It passes, no RTM. It doesn't pass, we just do RTM. And this does not involve the legislature at this point?
Correct.
But if we wait until March, it does.
Right, because it's been petitioned as a charter change.
But if we, all right, so we cannot put this on as a charter change in the November election?
Correct, because you're past the time for that.
Okay.
Well, you could on your own
you-
as the select board, but the problem with that is then it would have to get ratified by the legislature, so it's not going to resolve anything before the vote in March.
Yeah.
All right, but so just a straight up and down vote, basically, we don't do an RTM in March.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And before I open it up, my concern is that stretch of time from November to March is a long time for the public to understand what the hell's going on. Like, we want to have a town-wide discussion about our form of government, which is so important. And we're going to do it in, this proposition is in piecemeal fashion, so that the public is like, yeah, let's vote this way in November. And then we all hold our breath until March. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because what the people will be voting on in November would be incomplete. It's an incomplete thought, because the people need to know what type of government we have, and you're only giving them half of the answer, because the petitions are out there in March. They have to be in March, and I think it would be better to have a uniform discussion of all the questions that we're asking the public for input for, that we understand that this is a complex problem, and we want to give them all the information that they need at one time so they can vote on it.
Can I just give you an example of, by having your vote up or down on representative town meeting form of government, I don't disagree that if you vote it out and you're back to this operating via the statute, the default of the statute is open town meeting unless there's a vote to do it by Australian ballot, okay? So absent these petitions, we still could have had that exact vote come March, but we have the petition, so we're going to deal with it. But my point is that if you know from a November vote if it is discontinued, then you're not going to have all the representatives getting their petitions and for going through the caucuses and all of that sort of thing. Your committees on how they're formed and how we're going, you as the select board are going to make the warning for town meeting to pass certain articles such as the human services, those sorts of things. You'll know because you'll made that decision in November. So you'll know how to prepare for March. So there are a lot of these practical things. And I don't disagree with Hillary Francis, the town clerk, that says by having a vote in March, there is certain uncertainty of having to try to reserve the gym on 2 different dates and different schedules with playoff games. Hillary has brought up some pretty good points there. But to me, it's the knowing what form of government you're going to go forward with, and then come March you refine it. Either you're going to stick with the default of open town meeting or you're going to go to Australian ballot.
Can I just add to that this discontinuing RTM is sort of a threshold question. It's not 3 equal options. This discontinue vote has to happen first, and so right now it's a lot of if this then that, and if that then this, and you could actually narrow the scope and maybe make it a lot easier for people to understand how the vote happens in March by addressing this threshold issue and knowing the answer to that before you talk about, so it's less hypotheticals. It's more like these are your choices as opposed to having these sort of tiered discussions.
Yes.
Just the world's briefest question. What are we trying to come out of this meeting with today in terms of decisions or shared understanding? Are we head nods for doing it a certain way, or?
It would be, well, John, you go ahead.
Well, I would just suggest that if you want to accept Bob's recommendation, really, we would just know that we should prepare for an October 3rd meeting, which would be within the window to warn something in November. If you want to go with what the Charter Commission is saying, then you don't have to make any decision tonight, and you can just wait until 60 days prior to town meeting day to warn an information meeting. I think that would be the next step.
Thanks.
All right, shall we open it up to the public?
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
squeeze
Please.
in
Go ahead.
just one more clarifying question. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding this right. So November, we voted up or down. Let's say we eliminate it. What happens does that nullify? There was some language thrown around about it nullifying one of the petitions.
It only nullifies the first question on the Australian ballot petition, which is identical to the proposed language we would have you vote on in November. Because that vote's already happened.
Just went deeper in the hole. Okay. So does anything get eliminated in March if RTM, and I'm assuming March happens the way we're discussing it if everybody says, no, we want to keep RTM. So I'm just putting us in a scenario where it gets voted down. So it gets voted down. We've sort of discussed that one of these petitions is semi-redundant to that, right? And then what happens with the Australian ballot then? You sort of said that, but I didn't
It's in your packet. The Article 1 is, shall we discontinue RTM?
Right.
So if you've already discontinued RTM, you can delete that as a technical correction because you don't need to discontinue something that doesn't exist anymore.
I have one more
With regard to
caveat
that
for that.
petition, if that is, petition is Article 1, you would vote on the second article, would renumber them, and then you'd have the second petitioned article as your next article.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. If RTM in November would be voted in to continue, then in March, would Article 1, as it's written on this petition, remain and you could vote on it again?
Yes.
But you would be voting on it as part of their charter change, not as a townwide vote that would go into effect immediately.
Meaning that because that vote would be on the first Tuesday, and let's say that that vote in March was the opposite of what it was in November, meaning RTM is discontinued, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't hold your RTM a couple Saturdays later, because the charter petition has to be approved by the legislature, so that doesn't go into effect until 2027, essentially.
All right, are there other select board members who have comments? And then I'll open it up to the public.
I do have a question. So
Please.
what happens so Section 2 in the new charter draft talks about the way committees are formed, Finance Committee and Human Services Committee, and that's by Australian ballot. So what would happen if we defaulted to open town meeting? How would that go for this year? So if we took the November,
Right.
I mean,
Right, because our charter changes would not be voted on. So what we have in the charter isn't happening yet.
so we would
So-
default to how we did it with representative town meeting?
Yes.
But in open town meeting?
Yes.
Same format? Okay.
Yep. Your
Yes.
charter could continue to do, until your charter is amended, you would continue to do it pursuant to your charter, except instead of doing it at a representative town meeting, you'd be doing it first Tuesday in March.
Got it. Thank you. I was confused.
Is the board extinguished questions for the time being? And we can open it to the public? Dr. Reichman?
Thank you. Good evening. Franz Reichsman, Brattleboro citizen. So you folks find this confusing? Well, I'd say so. There's a book about negotiating solutions to problems. It's very well known, actually. It's called Getting to Yes. And it starts off by saying that what you really want to do in a negotiation, which this kind of is adhere to principles, not positions. Now, the Charter Revision Commission has done the work to adopt positions. They've been working hard on this and thought it through. But for the rest of us, almost no one has done that work yet. And what's really important here is to consider the principles by which we want town government to operate. Getting to the point of discussing positions now is premature because we don't understand them. Heck, we don't even understand the process yet. Just the fact that we're sorting through this, clearly your legal advisors have come up with an approach that makes some sense, but still leaves a lot of unknowns. So what I really want to advocate is that people take a step back from the positions and look at the principles by which we want town government to operate. And for me, I just put together a few things that I think are important principles. One is we want to maximize participation. We want to maximize inclusiveness, where explicitly the Australian ballot folks want everybody to have a voice in the decision. And that goes for the open town meeting as well, because at least theoretically, practically it's another question, but theoretically everybody could have a voice in that decision. But we also want discussion, a robust discussion, especially by people who really know what they're talking about. And that occurs more in a town meeting setting than certainly by Australian ballot. And we want the possibility of amendment. If somebody's got an idea and says, no, let's do it this way, then that should also be on the table. So to me, those are the important principles. And what we really want to do is that in looking at any of the positions that people are taking is see how they affect those principles. And that's what I would advocate at this point for the vast majority of us who haven't had the opportunity to think it through carefully. It's still early in the process. For most of us to adopt positions right now, I think is premature. And I think that goes for the board too, because you guys clearly are struggling with the same issues that the rest of us are. So that's what I would say. Let's do it the right way. Let's get to yes. Thank you.
Well, and again, thank you, Franz. We're not discussing the merits of one choice over the other. We're discussing how to vote on it, how to put it on the ballot, what's the best way, the most inclusive way, et cetera, et cetera. So, Gemma?
And on that note, I have some procedural questions about this very issue because I am not an attorney. However, I do understand legal language and I can read like most people can. As I read 17 VSA 2640A 3D, a vote establishing a representative form of annual or special meeting shall remain in effect until the municipality votes to discontinue or establish a new representative form of annual or special meeting at an annual or special meeting duly warned for that purpose. My reading of that law is that this cannot go to a townwide ballot. This must be voted on by RTM because that is the version of government that we have and that is what Vermont law states. Furthermore, as I read the current Brattleboro Charter, in section, Article 3, Section 2, Initiative B, petition for inclusion of the warning of an article to adopt an ordinance. 3, if the date of the next representative town or town school district meeting falls within 60 days after receipt of the petition, and if the petition is presented within sufficient time, it shall be included as an article on the warning for that meeting. Otherwise, a special representative town or town school district meeting shall be called within 60 days after receipt of the petition. So the 2 petitions that have been received have to be voted on by RTM, not by the town as a whole, as I read that law. Now, I'm sure the town attorney will have more information on that, but that's how I read it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's,
So just to address the first question about how the vote to discontinue occurs, there is actually language in Addendum A, which was the act to adopt RTM, that specifically says that RTM cannot vote on its own existence, so it would have to go to a townwide vote. And then to address the second part, the quoted language that you just read from the charter is regarding an ordinance, and this is a charter change pursuant to state statute, which is cited as the first option of charter changes in the second to last section, I believe it is, of the charter, 17 VSA. Do you know it off the top of your head?
No, off the top of my head.
But it's in there. It's
the difference here is that what you read there speaks to an ordinance, right, and a charter change is not an ordinance.
But the reason I brought that up is because I'm trying to find language in either the Vermont statutes or the town charter that governs the inclusion of a petition on the town ballot.
It's,
and I'm not finding
it. It's near the end. There's a section that deals with how you amend the charter. It's and the option 1 or A or whatever it is by statute, and that's the site.
And that's VSA or is that the charter?
At Article 8A, in the manner provided by 17 VSA 2645.
Okay.
well, that was fun. Randy, you had your hand up first.
Randy Blodgett, District 7 RTM member. So I have a couple things. The first thing is, in the charter itself, is there any precedence in the state or elsewhere to not have a preamble in a town charter? I tried to read through a bunch and I find conflicting answers, not that I'm an attorney either. So that's one question. Is there a place large enough to even hold open town meeting in Brattleboro, and what would that limit be from the fire marshal? If there is a vote in November, that RTM would be voted out, and then open town meeting would be the new form of government under statute, does that technically correct out the new petition? Is another question that I'm just trying to understand all these variables. Is there legal or state precedence to have two competing petitions for two different forms of government that's ever happened in Vermont or another state? And can all this be legally challenged that we're just waiting even longer? I'm just curious on all those notes, and I know it's a lot to digest.
All right. Now, I'd happy to ask the attorneys to answer Randy's questions, but I really want to make a distinction between the merits of one versus the other, which I don't really want to talk about, versus how to ask the people to vote. So please, can you answer
You may need to
Randy's
help me
questions?
with the preamble. I think you'll see in different charters, depending on whether it's a village or a town, some have preambles, some don't. That's really a matter of style and history, perhaps.
Peter or Joy or Denise might be able to speak to that. They looked at all 102 other charters. They could probably tell you how many do and how many don't, but we don't need to get into that tonight.
It's just a generalized question of me trying to read through this last day and try to understand everything.
Okay,
As
so
far as
Randy, you had a bunch of questions.
the question as to whether or not this has come up before of two competing charter changes, I just simply don't know the answer to that on that, just not having researched that. Gosh, there were 5 questions. I got 2 out of 5. That's not very good. What was the second?
I asked if it could be legally challenged.
Oh, yes. So
all of this at the end.
any of it can be legally challenged through any vote, whether it's on a charter or a town meeting article vote. There's the opportunity by petition for a referendum or a reconsideration. So depending on whether you're proceeding by our charter or by state law, there is the ability to seek an additional vote on that if by petition. And of course, if somebody thought that procedures were not followed, they could seek a declaratory judgment action in court, theoretically.
I think one of your questions was whether or not the vote in November would invalidate the new petition, and it would not, because there's a difference between operating under state statute and having it be a charter change.
Okay, that's why I was just curious with all those variables.
All right, I've seen.
Is that all?
One more?
Yeah.
That's 4 out of 5.
Depends on this capacity.
Yeah,
Oh,
Kate can speak to that.
9,000 voters. Where are we going to put it?
Well, you don't have, you don't
It's
actually
about
that many people
6,000
vote in
votes.
March.
6,000.
Yeah.
And Kate knows the capacity of the high school gym.
I don't know if you want to get into details about that right now, but I can assure you that we've had numerous conversations with the town clerk about this, and we can host a open town meeting.
And if you look statistically across the state, for most of the towns have open town meeting, and the turnout is not all of your registered voters. So you have to take some of that into consideration in what to expect.
All right, let's hear Dick, Frick, and Stephen.
Well, I'm going to address the November meeting vote. I think we should have the first vote in November. I would agree with the town attorney. Under Randy's question, is there a facility big enough to handle the number of people? I would just remind everybody that's listening, there are roughly 15,000 registered voters in our district that are eligible to go to the BUHS district meeting for the high school that got to vote on their budget. And if you got 300 people there, you would win the lottery prize. So the reality is, I would be happy if we could get 2,000 people, and I think it was back in 1996, I'll give you a little history lesson, that I believe a little over 900 people voted to reduce the budget at that meeting. They called it the Valentine's Day Massacre. So, and then there was a revote, and some money was put back in the budget. So I'm not as concerned about a facility holding an open town meeting. There's enough room up at that high school, even if you had to use the auditorium and 2 gymnasiums, they could certainly do it with electronics. So that to me is a moot point, whatever side you're on. And again, I believe we would be kicking the ball down the field if we took the first vote in November. Thank you.
Rick.
Rick Sprite, District 9 Rep. I think we have been spending too much money, and I agree with Dr. Reifman that we don't need to rush into this with a November vote. It's not a time of year for us to be considering things carefully. I think I'm far from the only one who is very preoccupied with getting ready for winter holidays, kids back to school, etc. And the expense of an additional vote and the certainly poor turnout will not give us any meaningful poll of the community to determine whether people really feel strongly one way or another. The survey that was done, I didn't even know about, and many other people didn't even know about. So the charter committees claim that they, have a good feel for the community's feeling on the subject is, I think, a little overstated at best. And I really don't understand how a open town meeting and a representative town meeting are in any way meaningfully different in terms of preparation for it. The only difference is you either prove that you're an elected representative or you prove that you're a citizen, and then you come in. And that's the entrance exam that can happen on that day and can be decided the night before. That's not a big deal in my mind. I don't see how it could be, and I'd love to hear something different. The other thing is that I don't know what anybody means by needing to prepare the gym for 2 different days. I have lived in towns where we had an open town meeting and we held our open town meeting on different days or nights than town meeting day. So that we could keep our town meeting where it's always been in terms of scheduling, and the results of the vote are the results of the vote. I'd also, my understanding is that there's thoughts of a petition in support of RTM, which would add a third confounding yes or no question, and it would have, I think, been ideal if we just had a 3-option question as one. But yes, democracy. Anyway,
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Okay. John.
Oh, Stephen.
Pardon me?
Stephen.
Oh, Stephen. I'm sorry.
John Kennedy, District 7. I'm confused. But I'm going to advocate that we do one election in November. We do the election, not November, excuse me, March. Okay, we do RTM, yes or no. We do Petition 1, Australian ballot, yes or no. We do Petition 2, open town meeting, yes or no. Okay, I think that, as the chair stated, it's the time of year that we're used to voting. It's the time of year when we're ready to think about voting, and we have all of the votes together to focus on at the same time. Okay, this is a momentous decision that this town is making. Okay, this is going to change our form of government potentially. We'll be writing about this in the beginning of the annual report at the town meetings in the years future. They'll talk about 1960, then they'll talk about 2025, maybe, depending on what happens. Because there's a lot of assumptions here that people are going to vote out town meeting. I'm not so sure that that's going to happen. And I think that we're putting the cart before the horse. Whereas if we have one meeting, one election, and we don't worry about the mechanics and the logistics of holding a follow-up election, and yes, it's going to mean we're going to have representative town meeting for at least one more year. Okay, so what? I mean, in the term of 60 years of RTM, it's not a big deal. In the term of 250 years of our town, it's even less of a big deal. I think that we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the townspeople to take this opportunity to make this kind of change at an election which will have the largest turnout, will have the largest representation historically at town meeting as opposed to a special meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Stephen?
Steve Peterson, District 7. And John, you took the words right out of my mouth, actually. It's deeply concerning from a kind of, spent a lot of years conducting and publishing on surveys. And I see massive problems with trying to pop something out in November with people not knowing, well, what's the alternative? What are we going to have? You're taking it away from me? I see massive cognitive problems for your average person trying to interpret what the hell that thing says. So I completely agree with John. Like, we need to do this right. There can be no confusion. They should wait until March, and who cares if we have to wait another year for the implementation? I also think we need a lot of time to communicate, to educate the community. Some people don't even know what RTM is, much less what it does and do we even have it. So we have a huge education campaign to make sure people know what the choices are and they make the right decisions. I'll also say one last thing too. Is there no hybrid option? Can't, like, I hate to complicate situation, but really town meeting is just a meeting. Can't we open up the gym and open up a Zoom and let the fur fly, and then people can go back to their homes and send in their ballot? It seems to me like we can have it all if we figure out a way to flex a little bit.
Thank you, Stephen. It's our moderator, Mr. Gardenstein.
David Gardenstein, District 9 voter. I want to thank everybody for engaging in the discussion. I think it's way important to have this fully vetted and fully discussed. I have a question for the town attorney and for Hannah, if you can answer. Since the representative town meeting is adopted by statute and by charter, can you explain why a mere townwide vote would be enough to rescind it without needing to go to the legislature to adopt that? That's number one. All right. The second question I have, and it follows up on the hybrid issue that was just addressed. Is it possible to have the budget as adopted by select board presented to town meeting, whether open or representative, and then another check being Australian ballot thereafter within a period of time based upon the number that's been approved by the town meeting after it's been adopted by recommended by select board?
Okay, David asked two questions.
Let me answer the second one first. As the charter stands right now, you could have the check of the vote on the budget at representative town meeting by the voters by referendum, but that requires doing a referendum. It would require a charter change in order to make it automatic that it gets voted upon by your reps and then again voted upon by the voters. But it's not that it can't be done now, it's just to do it now requires a referendum vote on that. The first one, it's by statute as to whether to discontinue representative town meeting or to form it. And as Hannah had said, it also is with regard to the, nothing is conferred upon representative town meeting. You can't have representative town meeting vote on its own existence. So by virtue of that, you have to have a vote of the voters by Australian ballot in order to do away with it or not. So if you had it at the, your question goes to whether that is a statutory change or a charter change. It would become a charter change because the idea of the Charter Revision Commission is we'll take the answer, and then the Charter Revision Commission also has a myriad of other good changes which are going to be made theoretically, whether or not it's representative town meeting or Australian ballot or open town meeting. So there's a lot that this commission has been working on for 2 years, and now is going to have to wait more for implementation.
And just one other point on that, at the time that RTM was adopted, there was no provision under state statute to vote to have RTM, and that statute has been passed since this was adopted, so so that's why this was done as a charter change, and it can now be undone by a vote because that statute came into place, I believe in 1990s or something like that.
Thank you.
If I may, please, point of order.
Sure.
I have to address this because that is exactly what I was getting at before. I see nothing in any of our charter or Vermont statutes that allows a vote by the people to discontinue RTM to have that take effect immediately. According to Vermont law, what I'm reading is that RTM continues until the General Assembly approves that charter proposal. And if that's the case, even if you're talking about the law about representative town meeting being passed later, that law is very specific about how a representative town meeting can be rescinded. It has to be by town meeting. So there's a lot of confusion here as to the propriety of even doing this in the first place. I just want to be sure that, I will say for the record that I oppose this change. I oppose all of these changes, not all of the charter changes. Some of them are necessary, but as far as concerns representative town meeting. But if we are going to go forward with this, we first have to ascertain whether or not this is even being done according to the law.
Are you saying in that in your last statement you said it has to be done by town meeting, or it has to be done by?
I think
would you like us to address that question?
Representative town meeting.
Stephen.
Which are you inferring?
Town meeting in Brattleboro is representative town meeting. There
All right,
is no
people,
other town meeting.
let's have the attorney answer the question that's been asked.
So the statute that speaks to a townwide vote to discontinue representative town meeting is 17 VSA 2640A sub D.
Could you say that slowly? I'm sorry.
17 VSA 2640A sub D. The statute number is 2640A. It's not 2640. And then sub D says that a vote establishing a representative form of town meeting shall remain in effect until the municipality votes to discontinue. And as Bob has already mentioned
That's not the entire statute. No, she can't, because this is a point of order, okay? Until the municipality
Gemma?
votes to discontinue or
Gemma?
establish by new representative
Gemma?
form. Yes.
Let this attorney continue.
Very well.
There is a second half of that sentence, but it is about establishing a new form of meeting at a meeting warned for that purpose. So that is inapplicable to the discontinuation situation. And in page 16 of the current charter at section 10, it states that the act creating representative town meeting does not abridge the right of the inhabitants to assemble and hold general meetings, nor does the act confer upon any RTM the power to finally commit to the town any measure affecting its municipal existence without action thereon by the voters of the town at large, using the ballot and the checklist therefore. So the existence of RTM cannot be voted on by RTM.
Great. You still want to
May I just
debate
say
this?
That is not my interpretation of that section.
One thing.
Whoever's clause is correct, the fundamental tenet of democracy is not that a group gets to exist on its own.
All right.
I'm sorry, but
First of all, you address me.
Oh, sorry.
Second of all, you guys should have that conversation outside, offline. And I'm going to go to the people who are
I'm just
on
saying that
Zoom.
whichever statute prevails, it's the right of the people to decide what they want. That's all I'm saying, and we need to find a way to do that.
Let's hear from Andy Davis.
Hello. Great conversation. I think it does reveal a need for some education across the board on how this goes, because we don't want to have the end result be a reduction of people's confidence in our self-government. I do think that creating time for looking at all the options as a town is important. And I was very concerned about moving to a multiple choice question in November. And I feel we're drifting away from that for good reason. The idea of having all three considered for a vote in March, I like that, because November is going to be upon us extremely soon to make a decision. Someone mentioned hybrid. We have a hybrid system now. We have a representative town meeting. We have a select board that is voted by Australian ballot that is fully accountable. I think accountability is another one. Dr. Reisman mentioned underlying principles. I think another underlying principle is accountability. And we have an accountable body in our select board, which has many of the legislative functions of this town. So we have a hybrid system. We also have a system of checks and balances. And I think that we need to, it's not three separate systems. We're not voting between A, B, and C. There's overlapping functions. And I think it really does take a full conversation. One option is improving RTM. I think anyone on RTM has ideas for improving RTM and responding to some of the critique of RTM. So I really do think I'm in favor of time to have convene informational meetings and discuss this and educate the public, because it's a big, big decision. Another part of getting to yes, that was also mentioned by Dr. Reichman, is appeal to objective criteria. And I think we really do need to agree upon the process and get that crystal clear how it's working. Back in the 1960s, this was debated. RTM was very controversial. It was voted out. There was lawsuits. It was voted back in. I think we could learn a lot by looking at history and try to get this as a really clear decision made by the people of Brattleboro. Thank you very much. And thank you for having the visible clock there in front of the select board. That's extremely helpful. I'm done.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate your conscientiousness. Beth.
Hi, thank you. I do want to kind of follow up. I appreciate what you had to say, Andy. I also really appreciate what Franz says. David Gartenstein's article in the paper was really helpful, his op-ed piece, if anyone hasn't read it. Mike, I have a simple question, and maybe you want to direct this to the attorneys. I'm not sure, Elizabeth, but in the notion of a hybrid, is it a possibility to be creative in a way that you have an open town meeting, but do have certain things on an Australian ballot to improve inclusiveness for, people who don't want to show up, who can't show up, blah, 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 because I think inclusion is important. I think discussion and understanding among people in this community at this time of dangerous divisiveness is essential to keep our community whole. So it's just a question of what is what's the possibility of a more hybrid. I mean, I know what Andy was saying about we do have a bit of a hybrid system, but making it, can you play with it?
Oh, I hadn't seen that. All right. Thank you, Beth. So, Kate, you have been raising your hand, and I've been looking.
Well, I've been waiting till all the public says something. I didn't want to butt in. I'm going to speak personally right now, not as a member of the Charter Revision Commission, but I'm going to speak from my experience on being on the Charter Revision Commission, that I know and I can say this assuredly, that my fellow members of the commission, we've worked really hard on the charter that we've put forward. And it's taken us as long as it's taken us because we wanted to get it right and we wanted to make sure we listened. So I would suggest that when you're discussing the timing of when you're going to do the vote, that you take that same thing into consideration. Because it is, somebody here said, and I think we all agree, changing our form of government is really important. And, you know, I walk down the street now, and because of the petitions, there's interest now. And I can't tell you how long it takes me to go from my my office at the chamber to my house 1 block away. I mean, it can take me an hour to get home. Just because I'm explaining, oh, this is this and this. So I think it's really important that the way that this vote happens, people can understand and they're not confused. And personally, again, we have not talked about this as a commission. We've talked about what happens to our thing. Personally, I think asking people possibly the same question twice, once in November and then in March, is going to be incredibly confusing. And because I've actually had to explain this to people already, and it's incredibly confusing. So again, I'm not giving you an opinion of the Charter Revision Commission. I'm giving you the opinion of somebody who's on the Charter Revision Commission and has spent a lot of time explaining, well, if this happens, this might happen, this might happen. So I would really think really clearly of whether having a vote in November and then possibly having that same question on the ballot again in March is the right way to go. And I think the question, the questions alone on changing the form of annual town meeting is going to take some great deal of discussion for us to have. And, you know, as you know, we were prepared before the petitions to have, if our charter was going to go before the voters in November, you know, we were preparing for a month-long education campaign about all of our charter changes because we really want people to understand what it is. I think it's a huge thing. So again, I'm speaking as a person, not as the Charter Commission, but that's where I'm coming from.
Well, and Maya, would you like to speak as well?
I just wanted to encourage everybody, no matter which form of government you want to support, whether it's RTM, whether it's open town meeting, whether it's Australian ballot, to please read the charter changes. Because there's a lot in here that has nothing to do with open town meeting, RTM, Australian ballot. We have worked, that has been kind of, I wouldn't say a minor part of our discussion, but it hasn't been really the entire focus of our discussion. And I think it's very sad that people have decided to focus on that issue instead of looking at the charter as a whole. Now, what we've done, if the votes are different, can be modified to take into account how people want the town to be governed. But there's a lot of stuff in here that has nothing to do with that. And so please, everybody, read the charter. Read the redacted version and then read the clean version.
Let me ask you this. Would the Charter Commission be amenable to having two versions of the charter, one for open town meeting and one for Australian ballot?
I think, we're having a meeting next week. We can talk about that. One of the things I'll just throw out some of the things are dependent on the other. So, and again, we have to talk about this next week, but that's a very tall, sort of a tall order for us because we are recommending open town meeting. Obviously, if a vote says, no, we want to do Australian ballot, we will go back to our work. But to have us now redraft an entire charter, you know, with one thing after 2.5 years, you know, of putting the work
Fine.
in.
All right,
But
so
can I
I
mention
just-
one thing to you, though?
Go ahead.
Just really quickly, with the timing, just if you're thinking about this, with the timing, if you have these votes in March, and I've talked to Hillary Francis about this, there is an election, there's a primary election next year in August, and there's a general election in November. So there are two opportunities for the town for our charter revision recommendations in whatever form they come in you wouldn't have to have a special election if you didn't want to because you have August and November.
Good, yes, and that is a question that we haven't discussed, and that whatever the outcome is of said March election, unfortunately, your work continues.
Exactly.
And you guys are in for more than a pound because it would involve putting yourself forward for the charter to be reviewed at either one of those elections.
Yeah, and we have. Oh, Peter's frantically. He wants to wait. We've had those discussions at our last meeting about, you know, the results of an election on these two petitions may mean we have to, you know, change our recommendation.
Right.
You know, but.
Yeah. And I will say, too, that the one thing that hasn't, and I know we're not discussing the merits of one versus the other, but Australian ballot includes robust informational sessions. So there is opportunity for discussion. And yes, I saw you roll your eyes. Peter?
Thank you. Peter Rowell. I'm resident in District 9 and also a member of the Charter Review Commission, and I'll offer the same caveat that my colleagues just offered about it's a little awkward for us because we're having a discussion, or we're participating in your discussion on some details that we haven't actually discussed thoroughly ourselves, and so it's important that we flag that it's our own opinion and we're not necessarily going to agree with one another, so it at least proves that we're not violating the open meetings law in our own work. And what I would say is I agree with Kate's last statement. I think it's really important that this question gets settled, and I agree with the things that have been said by numerous people in this conversation on the dais and in the audience around the importance of getting it as clearly settled as possible. And I agree with those who say that's putting all three questions on in March and not doing this in two pieces. I think that's pretty essential from my perspective. But the reason that I rose was not just to tell you what I think about what other people have think about it. I actually, while I recognize that this is complicated and challenging to get put before the community in as constructive and straightforward a way as possible, I don't think there's anything regrettable at all about where we are. I think it's actually fantastic that we have the work product that we are so far have prepared as a commission in the process that's sort of the normal every 15-year thing, and comprehensively looking at all the different aspects of the charter, and in due time, at the right moment, that fuller process will come to conclusion with a vote of the people. But in the meantime, you know, the people have come forward in various ways. And I think it's actually speaking really well to our the strength of our local democracy and the participation that citizens invest themselves in, that we have these two petitions, and now we're hearing maybe even a third, that puts the select board in a position where you can put these questions up for a vote side by side in March. And we can sit tight in the meantime as a commission. And then when the community has settled the question, you know, there's a lot else in the charter, but this is a fundamental question of how we conduct the community's business. And so to settle that question by the voters, and then have us as a commission finish our work by incorporating the outcome of that into the rest of what we have prepared, feels to me actually like a really healthy process that we should all be proud of. Trick being that we get the vote put up in the right way, and I think you're heading in the right direction if you do it all in March.
Great, thank you very much.
Point of information, there's the draft charter was not included in the agenda packet for this meeting and does not appear to be available anywhere on the town website.
It's available on our charter revision page.
On that page, I'm not finding
Yeah,
it.
Seth put it on. If you go to the thing, it's, I don't have my thing in front of me. It
Should be in the packet.
Should be in the packet.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, it is there twice. It's in the select board meeting and it's
All
on
right.
our thing.
Let's figure that out. In the meantime, the man directly opposite me.
Thanks. My name's Neil Manders. I guess I was a one-year term RTM District 7 rep last year. It sounds to me like what we've got here is, and I'm hearing a lot of this, is first of all, let's hold off until March. Secondly is let's educate what's going on. Who's going to do it? Right now, you basically have three sort of separate groups. You've got an Australian ballot group, you've got an open town meeting group, and you've got the charter group. What will end up happening, unless you control this to some extent, is that each group is going to stand up and defend its position as hard and fast as they can. And I think there's a lot of information out there that all sides need to hear. So maybe the way to get around this is, I don't think that any youth select board are so busy doing other things that you're going to individually have the time to chaperone and guide this information distribution method. So maybe you need to find somebody that's willing to do that, who's willing to pull together, put articles in the paper, listen to both sides or all sides and put information out, have informational meetings, small group meetings, similar to what we tried to do with the individual RTM district meetings, and have people come together and sit down and say, well, I don't like that idea on the charter, and talk about it and get this thing so that in March, you've got informed voters rather than people who have simply happened to fall in line with a particular philosophy. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Neil. I think that the elements of the charter are a longer-term discussion that the charter will conduct. But in terms of what's on the ballot, I'm sure the town clerk will have an interpretive statement of the ballot. Is that?
One, there will be by statute, by the petitions submitted, there needs to be the informational meetings. So as far as the education, the select board will be warning those meetings. And then, given that there are two competing, somewhat opposing petitions, we're going to have to talk to each group of petitioners about the draft of the charter that is to be presented, because the voters are supposed to be able to look at that and review that. So we'll have to have a conversation on it. But there will be the informational meetings for that, so that goes without saying.
All right. Randy, Ivan, and Frick, and that's...
And Madam Chair?
Yes?
I just wanted to mention that Ken has had his hand up for quite a while. I don't know if he's had a chance.
Sorry, I'm left-handed.
Real quick, I would just like to echo Mr. Davis's comment, I think, on being slow. We are changing our charter, which is our constitution,
and changing our type of government. Those shouldn't be taken lightly. I don't think anybody here is thinking we're taking it lightly, but I mean the general public, to educate them, to make sure all the ducks are in a row so that we can get an informed public making informed choices. Thank you.
And what did I say? Ivan, Randy, Ivan, and
Rick.
Yeah.
Hi, Randy Blodgett, District 7. Just the question, so are we having
Randy?
separate meetings on both? I just want to, like, how are the informational meetings? Each petition has a warned double meetings or informational meetings? I'm just curious.
There will be an informational meeting of the town, correct?
Correct.
And all three items would be discussed. Ivan.
Ivan Hennessy. And an important point that I think might help reduce the odds of like confusion about multiple initiatives winning their individual ballots is just emphasize to vote on all of them. Because there's the weird, interesting thing where like people vote for this one and don't vote on this one at all. And this one wins and this one wins when people, yeah. So I think it would help. Yeah.
Frick, you're the last one.
Frick Sprite, District 9 Rep. I have three things. One is my reading of the charter is that though the RTM or whatever form of government we end up with is a very fundamental and important part of the charter and deserves the extra scrutiny it's getting, it is not woven into the fabric of the charter writ large. So the idea of having two possible options, one of which includes RTM and one which doesn't, I don't believe, and I would love to see where and how many different pages would have to be amended to accommodate that. I have not seen it in my reading of the charter. I was involved in the charter revision last time, and we as RTM, as we go through the budget every year, went through the proposed charter changes line by line and amended, adopted, scrutinized every part of it. Is there something that's changed between last round and this round that excludes town meeting from this process?
Well, that sounds like a charming experience that you went through, but let's ask Bob.
As far as the changes from the last time of the charter review to now?
Yeah.
That the changes took place line by line at
the
RTM.
final draft of it was amended and approved by RTM.
Well, that's because it came from a charter review. Well, depends on which charter change you're speaking about in the last 15 years. But the last time it was done by a charter review committee, and it had different articles, and you were kind of like a menu of doing that. There have been others that have been done by resolution, which is subsection C, that were done by RTM, and that's by virtue of how it was brought to our representative town meeting. So some of them were brought by resolution, like changes on the dates and the so many Tuesdays before. Those were brought by resolution and then voted upon at the next year.
But those were minor amendments, not
Those
a
were
complete
minor,
revision.
correct.
Yeah.
Then the time when the last Charter Review Commission was together, it came up with all of its recommendations, and to fast track it, gave it to the Select Board. The Select Board then said, okay, we'll adopt these and put it on for a vote by Australian ballot. So that was one way of doing it. So it's been done different ways, depending on which of the four ways it came to the voters. So sometimes it goes to Australian ballot and sometimes it goes to the representatives, depends on how it's introduced.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think there is clearly some debate also about a change from RTM, whether or not it would in fact be a charter change and whether or not it would have to go before the legislature. And I think pushing that through quickly for this coming year would invite legal action. That's my read.
All right, now let's get back to the board. Ladies and gentlemen,
Unfortunately, I do have a question.
go ahead.
It feels like in the last 45 minutes or 10 hours, whatever it was, everyone started drifting towards just the 2 petitions in March with no vote in November. But that, I want to toss it back to Bob and Hannah because that's not your recommendation. My one thought on it before asking for your thoughts is that it does seem like it at least avoids the technical problem of what town meeting we would have, because since these would all be charter amendments, whatever decision we make would not change. We would have RTM no matter what in March. So at least that part of the that possible confusion doesn't come up. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that and how your recommendation.
You're correct on that. If you leave it to March, you're going to have representative town meeting, period. If you, depending on people's views on open versus Australian ballot, may affect whether they vote to discontinue under Article 1. So the reason that I was suggesting of having whether to discontinue as a separate special meeting in November is you talk about the fundamentals. That deals with whether you have representative town meeting or no representative town meeting. It says nothing about whether you're doing it by Australian ballot or open, it's representative or not. And so from my thinking, you're dealing with these things sequentially. That's a fundamental question to vote on first. And if the will of everyone is to put them all on for March, it's not illegal to do that. You're going to have, because if you do that, you're then going to prepare for a representative town meeting, which could be a lame duck representative town meeting.
Lame duck, its decisions would still hold.
Yeah.
It would just be the last one.
Right.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so board, what do we want to do? There's no motion proposed, and there's no decision to be made, except for we can say, do we want to entertain a future select board meeting wherein we would warn a November ballot, or do we want to do, as has been discussed tonight, have it all in March?
Here's kind of where I'm leading on this whole thing. There's been just a tremendous amount of information that has flown around here. A lot of real cogent, good points. You know, I mean, my initial thing is just to put one thing on the November ballot so that we have one thing to think about, but with the understanding that probably the worst thing we could do is put it on the November ballot because we don't have enough information to get to people. So I'm hugely conflicted by that and what to do. So I'm thinking for this evening, what we need to do is kind of put this conversation to bed, put it on the agenda for the next meeting or the meeting after that. If what you're saying and what I feel like is coming down the pipe, that we have to say, we're gonna do this here or we're gonna do this in March. So I'm not prepared to make a decision at this point, given all this flurry of information and discussion. So, I mean, that would be my recommendation, is to maybe kick this to the 24th or October 3rd to make that decision. Because I think both I asked John, both would give us enough time. If we decide, if we all came back and said, we need to warn this thing in November, it would give us enough time to do that.
All right. What do the other board members think about that?
I don't hate it. I'm pretty fuzzy after all of that, and we don't have to decide at this exact moment, so I'm okay. I think that makes sense.
We could have another very lengthy discussion.
Well, it could be shorter next time.
I think it's a wise suggestion Peter made to warn it for another meeting.
Isaac?
I do think time is our friend, and I did hear many different people here who have very different perspectives on a number of things, including what kind of government or how we want to make decisions. Say, let's wait until March to make this decision. I do know that we have a number of other things that we need to discuss, like our finances, our budget. There's a lot coming down the pipe, and so rather than locking us into having to have this discussion again, where I imagine people here might have similar opinions as you had tonight, and we might kind of repeat ourselves, I would suggest that we lay this to rest, like Peter has suggested. Yep. And we let this be for now, because we don't need to make a decision. And if somebody on this board feels that it's really important for us to continue this discussion and talk about it more, because they really want to make a proposal that we have that vote in November, then you could do that. But we don't actually have to do that, because from what I've heard, there's not a real strong rallying cry from the public that we need to have this vote in November. That's my suggestion, is that we let it be without locking us into having to have this discussion again in the next,
I think
before November.
We need to respond to the recommendations of our town attorney. So we will table it to have a meeting, have it at our next meeting, not the Thursday meeting, because that's a listening session, but the meeting
24th.
On the 24th.
Yeah, I'm good with
Which,
that.
by the way, is going to be held at 7:15 on a Wednesday night, because that's the end of Rosh Hashanah.
Madam Chairwoman, one clarification. Will we be voting at that time?
No, we will be discussing and determining whether or not we want to bring it up for a vote on October 3rd, because that would be the time to warn it on November 4th. Okay? Everybody good? Kate, Maya, Joy, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah,
Thank
you guys,
all the
you
members
didn't get
of
a
the
chance to
Charter
talk a lot,
Commission.
but thank you for all the work you did.
We'll be back.
I thank you very much for all your hard work and for your discussion this evening, and all the members of the Charter Commission and everyone who came, who's rapidly leaving when we have all these fun things to discuss.
You want a snack?
Yeah.
No,
They're
thanks,
gone.
I'm driving.
Bob and Hannah, thank you. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we have 2 items to discuss. All right, let's call the meeting back to order. There's a lot more air in the room.
All right.
Let's see. Monthly budget update for July of FY26. Discussion. Presentation by town staff. That would be you.
So, our regular monthly budget reports in your packet for July, the first month of fiscal 26. And we're reporting that with 8.3% of the fiscal year completed, in the general fund, we are seeing expenditures at 9% of the annual budget, but when we prorate it and take out things like insurance payments, human service payments, and other things that are front-loaded, reduces the general fund expenditures to 6% of the annual budget, so we're looking pretty good overall there. Similarly, on the revenues, Oscar asked me about prorating that. We're at 80% of the annual budget right now, with with the receivables, but if we prorate annual revenues, it would be 6.6% of the budget, which is slightly below the 1/12 of the plan. So, you have a question on that?
No,
Yep.
that's surprising.
Yeah.
To me. So, because it looked like it was up. So, but I'm not worried about it personally.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to be worried about. Cash balances in the general fund as of July 31st are at $14,914,726, so we're in good shape there. Utility fund, we have revenues at less than 1% of the annual budget through July, but we aren't going to be assessing revenue until October, when the first quarter readings and invoicing is completed for July through September. Expenditures are at 5% of the annual budget, so again, utilities is looking to be in pretty good shape on the expenditure side. Parking fund, expenditures are right around target at 8.1%, but revenues are 11.5% of the annual budget. So parking is starting to, knock wood, stabilize a bit, and we're hopeful about the results that we're seeing there. Also,
May I ask?
Yeah.
The rent from the co-op?
Yes.
Goes directly into the parking fund?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Also in the report is a loan report, a grant report, and a transfer report like we do in every month. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them or get you the answer offline.
Great. Yes.
Well, yeah, a couple things I'm going to call out as that we've talked about and at least are aware of. Parking revenue is above pace. We don't know if that part of that is because it's summer, so we don't really know for sure if this is a good July or whatever, but it's still a good sign. Apparently, having all the taxes in as of day one is just how it should be done.
Yeah.
They're just being treated as we're a municipality and we're going to get the taxes, so they're receivables, and that's a little confusing to me, but I can work around it. And then EMS revenue is receivables based on the percentage, 32 or 38 or whatever percent of expected reimbursement. The receivables in here are only from July of this year. We're not including anything from the previous fiscal year, which is good. And they're very high, so that may help us in some other areas. The obvious areas being police and fire overtime, which are looking a lot like last year, which is something we will have to figure out how to work out over the course of this year, and I think we'll budget for very differently in this coming budget. And yeah, I think that's it. There's a bunch of line items that are up and down. It's 1 month. It's hard to tell if some things are obviously just not things that happen monthly, like clearly a lot of departments spend their whole clothing budget in the beginning of the fiscal year. Probably it's the new fiscal year, we're going to get all our new uniforms, et cetera. So that budget is totally gone in 1 month. That doesn't mean we're on pace to spend that much every month. So a lot of those will be clearer as we go forward. And other than the overtime on the negative side and the EMS on the positive side, there wasn't too much else that I flagged. And those are the end of my budget thoughts.
Thank you, Oscar. Anyone else?
Yeah, I had one question. So for the day camp total electric, we use 61.5% of that budgeted amount. What is that for exactly?
Where are you?
It's on page 139 of 201. It's in, I guess, Rec and Parks. It's at the very bottom.
Electric.
The day camp total, unless it's pool.
It's pool.
And so is that for, I mean, it's not a big thing, but I'm just curious, is it just because it's a seasonally budgeted amount that we would get up to that amount?
Yep.
And then plan on it being, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right.
Sorry, I have one other thing. John and I talked this morning about these negative overtime numbers, and we are confused, or we're confused, and are going to look into it.
Yeah, and I understand that that was an issue with loading the right numbers in the budget, and it was kind of a clerical error, so that was the correction, but they didn't want to change anything in there. So it was something to do with the year end with accruals and reversals, and we're still looking into why that's showing up that way. But,
okay.
So.
I also had one other like nitty
Go
gritty
ahead.
silly question. So for, this is fire, on the very bottom, page 134 of 201, equipment maintenance. And I wondered how equipment maintenance change is different from, or maybe this is not, am I looking in the right thing? Maybe I'm at police, actually. It's a police line. How does equipment maintenance differ from like repair? Because repair is posted on another line. You guys see what I am on?
Well,
Right here, so
maintenance is-
51023, equipment maintenance, and I think actually it's for police.
And where's repair?
It's the same?
Hmm.
I thought I saw repair. Well, there's building repair. Are they one and the same?
We have building repairs,
No, yeah, so equipment maintenance.
equipment maintenance, so that would be maintaining any equipment that they have, including vehicles. So,
Okay, okay.
Yep.
And is that typical that, and is that one of those things that just gets used as it's needed or needs to be budgeted like throughout the year?
It's pretty, there are some things that are planned maintenance, so oil change or what have you, but others might just come up because the equipment is it was an unplanned maintenance need.
All righty. Amanda, you've asked.
But I would love to know, could I find out what it was for?
What it was for?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So I think this is on police. So it's 51023. Just kind of curious, because it's a big number for the first month of the budgeted year.
Yeah, so as we were navigating through fiscal '25 and trying to reduce expenses in that fiscal year, some things may have been postponed to July for.
That were deferred, got it.
They were deferred, so
Got
that
it.
they may be picking those up now. We could go back through the warrants and pull out those items for you if you want.
Or I could look as well. Yeah,
Okay.
I have that,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Also, I understand they're very close to having these up on the OpenGov, and so you can just go on there and look up this item, and I think it drills down. I'm not sure if it drills down to individual things, but it would show that item on there.
Great.
So.
Awesome.
All right, gentlemen to my left. Any questions on the budget?
I'm good. No questions here.
All right then. We have no motion to make. But you know what, that confuses me, because sometimes we do make motions. Is that quarterly?
The quarterly one you accepted that.
Quarterly
report.
one we
You could do
accept.
this as well if you want. It's up to you.
I'm fine. So the question is, we'll close this item. There's one more item. Oscar, do you wish to amend your item?
I'm just curious, any public comment on the
Oh,
financial report?
sorry, I forgot. Is there any public comment on the financial report? I think,
Gray, unless somebody has the information, but since you haven't met, John, you probably received the 2 checks for the last quarter of the 1% rooms and meals tax and sales tax. So I don't think you probably have that off the top of your head. If you could have that at the next meeting and just say what they were and where we finished for the year, unless you look it up now, you might be able to.
Yeah, I may be able to find it.
And then the other thing is what Oscar said about parking, that it's nice to be ahead, but I remind you that the board, during the holiday season, is giving free parking, I believe, on Saturday and Sunday, or at least one of the 2 days, which is going to affect.
Yet to be determined, but there'll be the holidays and whatever else is determined.
So the,
Well, John, you can get back to Dick with that number
Sure, or
or
if-
sell it at the next meeting because it's important to be.
and I do have the totals if you want to hear them now.
Great, oh, sure.
Okay.
Ready, Dick?
So
I'd like to wait till the next meeting.
I want to hear. I want
So
the
for-
Christmas present now.
So for quarter four, the rooms and meals tax receipt was $129,596.69, which brought our total for the year to $492,339.12, which was 94.6% of budget. On sales and use tax, quarter four came in at $284,455.91 for a total of $1.154 million, which was 102.8% of budget. So we did a little bit better on sales and use. That's what we
Great.
had.
Thank you very much. Okay, the public is set. Oscar?
Yeah, I don't have anything really to say about the priorities, but Dick wanted to pull them, and I'm happy to hear public comment on it. My only opinion on them is, they're not exactly my priorities, but they're a reflection of what this group.
They're a group decision.
Yeah, we voted on them as a group. I think they're a decent reflection of these 5 people. We'll work on many things that are not those priorities, and but I'm certainly not going to stand in the way of public comment on them.
Should we talk about the process that we use to have them be our priorities?
Please no.
Because none of my priorities got chosen.
Yeah, me neither.
If I could just ask, are you talking about something that happened at the last meeting?
No, we're talking about the select board retreat.
Oh, okay.
And there were 5 priorities. John, could you read them
Yep.
again?
Yeah, and in fact, we have a motion for you to consider, which would be to adopt the following 2025 to 2027 Select Board priorities. A, increase revenues. B, advocate for state revenue sharing. C, work towards child safety zones. D, expand the housing stock. And E, maintain financial responsibility in health. And that's on page 34 of 201 in your packet.
And there's actually a really detailed breakdown of everything we nominated, how the votes went in that 2-page memo in the backup materials.
Yeah. All right, so there is someone, someone like to make a motion, which would be
Just
found,
amend the, or just. to
what he just said.
Accept.
Was that Warren?
It was on the consent agenda, and Dick asked us to pull it.
Oh, okay.
We could have a motion, and then we could have public discussion.
So I'll motion that we accept the select board priorities as presented.
Very good. Now, who would like to comment on the select board priorities?
I would love to comment briefly, just to for the public to take note that the priorities that were considered, and also there were additional proposals. So they didn't make the mark as getting to be top priorities, but they're still, initiatives to be worked on.
Okay, public. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ivan?
Ivan Hennessy. I just have a quick question, hopefully with a quick answer. What's a child safety zone?
John, would you like to answer that?
I can. So our understanding, the administration's understanding would be that the select board was looking to revisit the idea of some sort of ordinance or setting up safety areas for children in the downtown area, and we would continue to explore that idea.
Any other comments? I see Kate.
I'm Kate O'Connor, Brattleboro. I'm obviously disappointed by these priorities because I was hoping that the town finances and the budget would be number one. I know you have a priority that says maintain financial responsibility and health. I would argue that it should not be maintain financial responsibility and health, but achieve financial responsibility and health, because I don't think we are at anything to maintain. I also note that you're talking about priorities for the next 2 years. You folks are only here until March of 2026, so I think that your priority should be for the next year, not 2025 and 2026. That's a technicality, but there's another election in March of 2026, so thank you.
Yes, John.
As I think we discussed this at the retreat, but these aren't really in any sort of priority order. We're sort of figuring they're all your top priorities. So A doesn't mean it's any more important than E. So that's to the first point that was made. On the other point, the reason that you do them for 2025 through 2027 is because you're setting policy through a budget that is for fiscal 27, and that runs through that time frame. So really, it's hard to even work on some of these priorities in the current year. It's really more about how are we setting up a plan, a budget to do them in future years. So.
It's worth saying that we're not locking future select boards into anything they can't change.
Mm-hmm. All righty then. Dick.
Since I asked for it, I should ask a question. Two things. What is your definition of, when you talked about the budget, low single-digit increase? And my second question would be, is that you have increased revenue 13 points. If you could just talk about that, what your ideas are on that, and then what your definition of low single.
Oscar, why don't you tell us what you mean by low single-digit increase?
Sure. 3, 4, 5, but I will point out that was my nomination for the one big idea. That is not the one that made it onto the top 5. Maintain financial responsibility and health was a different thing on the board that went up onto the top 5. So we have not adopted as a priority, keep the FY27 budget to a low single-digit increase. But I was thinking 3 or 4, probably higher than 5, and people start getting pretty upset.
Well, we'll just have to see.
The second question?
Let's hear from Nell first.
No, but you didn't answer my second.
Oh, well,
was it?
revenue,
About
I
the
mean,
revenue.
There were increasing revenue ideas that sort of got brainstormed and kind of no one specific one was chosen. So I, for example, had invest in the covered bridge to rent for events as a way to bring on revenue. I think maybe Peter had some other specific ideas too, and they got kind of lumped
The
into.
exploration of a gas tax, the selling off of municipal lots that are not currently used, to add them back into the tax base. Just off the top of my head, those are just the two, but, like taking a hard look at increasing revenues that will, lower the tax burden and get us to Oscar's goal.
Seems like we're not saying names, but Nelmo, District 8. And I was just looking at the points that they received and would just like to flag, especially in light of some of what was said by Libby Bennett and Peter Elwell, that I think probably the concerns that are prompting the call for like a renewed ordinance, as is mentioned under like the bracket of child safety zones. I would say a lot of those would be well addressed through expanding the housing stock, which I see is, you know, we've got 10 points child safety zone, 6 points housing stock. It's hard to know without being specific, but, you know, a lot of the markers of people being visibly poor in public and what's deemed as like undesirable behavior associated with that. A lot of, we know that addiction is linked to poverty. We know that the two exacerbate each other. We know that you're gonna end up more traumatized once you become homeless in the first place. And we know that we have a huge housing and affordability crisis in Vermont. So I would just love to see that if one is a priority, to understand the way that the two are linked. Especially given how much money we just funneled into the substation, which did come from UDAG funds, which was the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any more comments from the public? We have a motion. Isaac?
Yeah, I would just like to address the concern that Kate brought up in terms of the wording of the suggestion that we prioritize the town's financial responsibility and health. I had suggested that. What we just approved in our minutes is it's listed as prioritize the town's financial health and responsibility and health. So, you know, it's a friendly amendment to this list. It's just that we match it to what we have on this in the minutes that we just approved, which is prioritize the town's financial responsibility and health. It's a little redundant because we're talking about, these are all priorities, but if that would address this, that's fine.
I don't understand what you're asking. You're asking to change the results of our retreat?
The word
It was the
maintain wasn't
wording,
what
the
we
maintain,
said.
that word is new to me.
Yeah, we didn't say maintain at a retreat. That's the word that was added in this presentation. I wasn't going to make anything about it, but
And
since
what do
it
you
was
want
brought
to change
up,
it to?
just to match what we have approved in our minutes from the retreat, which is it says number 5, prioritize the town's financial responsibility and health.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
that addresses the concern
All right.
that was raised.
I agree.
All right.
I
A
will
motion has
amend-
been made and it
I
has
will
been
amend my
amended.
amendment.
Pardon me?
I will amend what I said.
Very good. So the language of the amendment, I think I just folded up and put in my purse. But we were out of here. All right.
Prioritize.
This,
Sorry.
did you want it?
No, I was just interrupting.
Okay. Which you're welcome to do. All right, so Peter made a motion that's been amended by Isaac that could read, we move to adopt the following 2025 to 2027 Select Board priorities. A, increase revenues. B, advocate for state revenue sharing. C, work towards child safety zones. D, expand housing stock. And E, prioritize financial responsibility and health. All Select Board members interested in voting for that motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
That's 5-0. Thank you very much. We have one more motion. Who wants to
Motion
make?
to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, BCTV.
Thank you.
Thank you all in attendance, and thank you, John.
Oh, that was a short one.
That was a quick.